The intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
Fun. Everybody was having a good time.
Does Brian Albert strike you as the kind of guy who's always having fun? No. And here's a news flash for this judge. Mental health professionals have solutions.
They made him arrest. I got the guy for Danny.
It was like a mix between sadness and anger, because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved.
The only corresponding records in the other databases are from previous days.
There is a huge psychological component to what was going on here. And according to this group, Brian Albert Jr. gets like the most celebrated birthday hour of anybody ever. Like every 30 seconds, someone's like, "Happy birthday!" John totally seemed like such a cool guy.
John makes me like
Somebody jumps in as a journalist, draws attention to it in a light that is not good for the prosecution. I mean, and there are serious allegations of corruption in the DA's office, in the state police.
It's not like his 21st birthday. Hi, loophole lawyer. How are you?
It feels great. It feels good to be back.
I'm going to go with this yours, because certainly I've gotten a lot of love from everybody today, which feels nice.
You are very, very loved. And I can't believe we get to spend your birthday with you. Happy birthday!
Text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party.
Hold on. Have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove or to demonstrate.
I don't know where the dog was. I didn't hear any barking. Her name is Sunny. She was named after Santino Corleone.
This is a scene.
Hey, hi, everybody. There's my Johnny. Hello. That's my Johnny.
Sunny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze. You're not really going to deny this, are you?
it's so weird. It's like the Inside Out, upside down. Narnia.
I would get at some point in a timely fashion and then turn it over.
Know if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say. Kill me. Not having any observable or detectable electrical activity would be asystole.
Means death. 3 separate tab IDs. The thing he had to encourage her to do was not to testify.
You know, and Julia Albert responds to the text message from John, and she goes, "My biggest fear in life is ending up on Turtle Boy."
Stop it.
Oh, you never seen that? Oh, I got it.
You're not going to like this, though. You're going to disagree with me on
Just say it. I like the
disagreement.
conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, the disagreement.
Canton Massachusetts.
People are terrified of him. They're absolutely terrified of him. And how do we know that? We know that from Mega Motion. Just another day for me, right? Which means it was just not an ordinary day for somebody else. Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back.
Karen Reed plots, she fabricates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand. That's going to increase the likelihood that we're going to take some action.
Here she is. Okay, your sister.
My sister Jillian, yes.
Oh, it's funny. But then he's got part of his shirt untucked. His back pocket is kind of hanging out.
Has to buy that. So, has to buy that. So.
And showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Just another day in Massachusetts, everybody. Hi, guys. Welcome to our 7 o'clock Wednesday Night Live, coming to you live from Connecticut instead of my normal New York City spot. So I know it looks a little different behind me, but we'll see. Hopefully things go smoothly tonight. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So just another day in the insane saga that is the Karen Reed story. I was watching today with Melanie, like I know many of you were. I saw some of you guys there. And, you know, I was feeling it. I was feeling it with Melanie. You gotta love Melanie because she's just so like raw. Like she's there with you. And I very much appreciate that, especially in an attorney who knows a lot of things about the law that I don't, right? Sometimes when you're not an attorney and you're watching this kind of stuff, you're thinking, oh, maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe this is like legal stuff that's normal that I'm like just getting savvy to now. But no, of course not. No, that's not what happened. And that was the first sort of part of the early afternoon, right? 3:00. Hearing starts late. It's very quick. I had guessed 20 minutes. It was 12 minutes to be exact because I actually have the recording from start to finish with Judge Gildea, and it is 12 minutes. So that's probably the most expensive 12 minutes of Karen Reed's life, I have to guess, given all the attorneys that were present from her team alone. And there's a lot to say here. The first thing that I want to say is, so there was a big effort immediately following the conclusion of this hearing to try to figure out what the hell is he talking about. And the thing that I think is obvious to all of us, right? Because for all of us, if there had been a document that had Proctor's medical history, we would have all seen it. We would have seen it immediately, right? And we didn't. So the fact that Judge Gildea was referencing some kind of big disclosure about Proctor, my first thought was, oh, we must have guessed correctly. Somebody must have guessed right and posted it somewhere. And that's what the judge is reacting to. Okay. But then, as per Corey Hopkins, let me pull this up. There actually might just be like a big mishap happening. This is as per Corey, who I know was working on this for the last couple of hours, trying to figure out what the hell is this judge referencing. And she says, guys, I am 99% sure that the judge mixed up Doc 112, which is not available to the public, the subject of the court's order on this hearing, with Doc 116, which was filed publicly at 2:22 and then posted at 2:52, which is still available right now. This whole time. So we love Corey, and we hope that she's wrong. Because if that's the case, what this judge just put all of these attorneys through, and here's what I'll give you my psychological take on what I think is happening with this judge. And then we're going to talk about really what was the latter half of what the judge said. Okay. So first, he's very sensitive and aware of how many people are interested, the public interest. And one thing we know for sure about Massachusetts and the legal system there, we saw this with Kelsey Fitzsimmons and her evil judge, the original judge, Kathleen McCarthy Neiman, that she was handed. We've seen this with Bev, Judge Bev. We've seen this with Krupp. We've seen this with all of the judges that have had to navigate around the spectacle that is the Karen Reed case. They don't like having all these eyes on them. I swear to God, you guys, if I had time, I would make a Yelp a Yelp-like rating system for judges in America because we need it. They are so used to not having eyes on them that when they do, they clearly do not like it. They don't like the fact that we're all watching so closely. It's threatening to them in some way. They don't like the big ticket attorney in the room like an Alan Jackson, which very clearly would be why the judge immediately singles out Alan Jackson, which we'll take a look at in a minute. So right off the bat, we have an older white man judge, and I'm not going to get into the misogynistic racial stuff at this moment, but I bring it up because this is the Boston area. This is Eastern Massachusetts, guys. It's all the same problem, just like reiterated in all these different ways. It's the same shit over and over and over again. It's the good old boys club. Then we're all hearing today about a civil case from a few years ago where some real estate guy, giant, sued Judge Gildea, Judge Krupp, Brian Albert, all in the same suit, which I don't know anything about that. I don't know if it's legit. Who knows? Maybe some crazy person was behind it. But just the fact that anywhere on paper these people are lumped together, it's not good, right? It's not great because that is what this feels like. It feels like more of the good old boys club. That's what this feels like. And before the hearing today, I was going to talk about how there's no way that Proctor and Goode or Good, whatever the hell his name is, piece of shit is fine with me. That there's no way these two are the only two. These are not bad seeds or bad apples. These guys, maybe they're a little bit more free with their language, but this is all of them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen no evidence that contradicts the fact that it's got to be the overwhelming majority because everybody knew about this. Michael Proctor, they had his text for how long? They had Sean Goode's text for a year and a half because Morrissey's office saw what Goode was saying long before we did, before October or whenever this investigator started looking into him. So, of course, they let him retire so that he gets his pension, or at least as much as he possibly could, because he only had 18 of like the 22 years vested, whatever. But he gets as much as possible because he retires instead of having been fired. So, of course, this judge doesn't like, number one, having his feet held to the fire, because none of them do. But this is the part that pisses me off more than anything else. This is the part that it gets me absolutely furious. And this is the same rhetoric that you're hearing. I'm hearing threads of it today from the judge that we're hearing about the conspiracy between Karen and Aiden to brainwash all of us on social media. This today, this little speech, whatever this was, monologue, reprimand, garbage from the judge, who it looks like may have simply made a mistake, honestly. That's what it looks like. It looks like he may have screwed up and actually made a mistake. You think he'll ever admit it? Of course not. But that's what it looks like has happened here. He made a mistake. He saw that 252 post from Grant and thought that he had leaked the different motion than what he posted. That's what it looks like happened. Because at 2:52 on June 8th, Grant posts what was the judge's motion to impound, which was posted legitimately on the legal docket. But it looks like the judge thought that the other document was the one that was posted at that time. Did he check? Did he double check? Did he triple check? Apparently not. Who cares? It's just Karen Reed's money. Who cares? But what pisses me off the most is that they have no idea what it even means. Like, he doesn't know what we're doing. He's talking about the lawyers pandering to social media. None of these people know that how many of you guys have dedicated hours, days, weeks, months of your lives to this case, to seeing justice in this case, right? This isn't about clicks and likes. This is about seeing justice. These are very passionate people who care deeply all over the world because a woman was framed for the death of a police officer and a bunch of cops were the real murderers. And why is it that for some reason it's just overlooked? It's like that never happened. None of that is real. It's the lawyers pandering to social media. It's just, it's so like when you hear this pompous old school judge sit there on the high horse and preach bullshit. It's one thing if what he was saying was true, right? It's one thing if those documents were leaked by somebody on Karen's team or whoever's team. But they weren't. And I knew they weren't. You knew they weren't, because if they were, we would have seen them. We would have known where Proctor was and what he was doing. Now, it turns out we actually did have that information. I didn't know that at the time because I wasn't paying close attention. I actually think that I was watching this stream, but I didn't pay close enough attention to what it was that Aiden was saying 2 days before this June 8th hearing.
One of those disclaimers. I don't know if this is true or not.
Disclaimer, right? So Fun Time says Turtle Boy posted the exact time and date he's talking about. It was about the rehab stand. Okay, but this, I'm telling you, this is 2 days before he's talking about this tip that he got, before Proctor's attorneys filed anything impounded about his medical condition.
2 days before.
So I'm just reporting this as a tip. That's not necessarily 1000% confirmed at all. Exact 0% confirmed, but I'm just going to read it. Because when it's, when a tip has like slightly more juice than like a completely made up shit, this one seems to have slightly more juice. All right. I got credible info from my coworker. He spoke to Proctor's wife, and he is in a psychiatric hospital in Florida for treatment. He was at McLean's in Belmont, but left for Florida, and now he's being treated down there. I know from past comments from my coworker, but Belmont Hospital in Florida, credible info from my coworker. He spoke to Proctor's wife, and he is in a psychiatric hospital in Florida for treatment. Belmont, but left for Florida, and now he's being treated down there.
Mm-hmm.
I know from past comments from my coworker, but just learned about the hospitalization a couple days ago. His wife and him are absolutely done. That's confirmed. She has separated herself from him for obvious reasons. So again, this is unconfirmed. Not sure how long this has been going on for with the ex-wife in the exact time, but
right. It was leaked to Turtle Boy before it was ever filed and impounded. Do you see the timing of things?
Because of the previous comments from my coworker about him being separated from his wife and in Florida or around 2 months ago. The coworker's wife is one of the best friends with Elizabeth Proctor.
Okay, so I don't know how I missed this, but I didn't hear it in real time. And I know I was listening to this stream. I just wasn't paying attention, right? That's my slight ADHD at action right there, right? So what Aiden got an email or a text from somebody claiming to be friends or associates with Michael Proctor's ex-wife, Elizabeth, and told Aiden that Proctor had been in a facility up in Massachusetts, basically a McLean subsidiary in Massachusetts, but was going to be flying down to a facility, mental health treatment in Florida. And he was leaving, I think, the Friday before that Monday, June 8th hearing, right? He ends up, remember, the judge didn't feel like it was sufficient. So on Tuesday, he orders Proctor to come back. And of course, doesn't happen because the lawyers can't be there, right? Alan Jackson had already left, whatever. So this information apparently was out there. Now, I don't know if it's true. Nobody's confirmed whether or not it's true. It certainly didn't come from the judge's docket, from an order from the judge. Could this be what the judge was referencing? Probably not, because this is 2 days before. And Aiden does post something on June 8th. I went back and looked through each and every X post, and there is not a 252 post, at least not that I saw, about anything, or a 222 post, whether it's 222 or 252. I'm still not exactly sure, but it's not about anything substantial. They seem like his posts seem to be earlier in the day for whatever reason, whatever it's worth. So this is out there. I mean, I think we all guessed that in real time that he was getting some kind of mental health treatment. No surprise. We already had known from Tully and Fanning that he was, quote, suicidal, after the grand jury all day long sitting and testifying about his text originally. So, okay, he's also gone to treatment before. We get it. His life is falling apart. His wife listed their home like 2 days ago. So it's listed for sale, right? So yeah, I mean, if you're Michael Proctor, your wife is certainly leaving you. You are, America's Most Wanted right now. Not everybody's favorite person. Let's put it that way. And imagine how embarrassing, right? I mean, I think at its core, if you're Sean Goode or you're Proctor, it's got to be pretty freaking humiliating at the least that, this is, people have these images of you now. They have your words. And I'm not sure which is worse. I heard Melanie saying that maybe Goode's was worse than Proctor's. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I was going back and forth a little bit with Vince about this over the last few days. Not about who's worse, but about what these words mean. Do these words inherently make you racist? And in my mind, it's not just racism. I mean, this is like rot, like human rot, like a rotten human being is what this is. A rotten, hateful, sort of white supremacist like jerk. I mean, I'm trying to be PG about how I put this, but just a rotten person. The problem is that I do not believe that these two guys that's it. They're the rot. Oh, we got rid of them. Now there's no more problems in the Massachusetts State Police or in Norfolk County, town of Canton, right? So I see some of you guys asking, like, what the hell happened today? So we can go back and watch. It's very interesting. I'll give you the short version, the summary of events. The Judge Gildea, gets, all of the attorneys that are involved with the O'Keefe v. Reed lawsuit. So anyone who's ever had any involvement and is like, has a non-party person coming in to testify or be deposed or whatever, any of those attorneys all had to show up. There were a few that were given the ability to be on Zoom, and then there were a few that just didn't have to show up, I guess, for whatever reason. But they had to sign affidavits, basically, that said, I do not know of and did not leak information. And of course, at the very end, what we saw was Alan Jackson asked to be heard. At that point, the judge had already walked out of the room. And I think, it was a hot day. I imagine you can't be pleased if you're Karen's attorneys and you're being scolded for something you just didn't do, and that didn't happen, right? Because that's the other thing. Like, there was no leak. And again, if there had been, we would have known. All of us would have been right there to take that information and disseminate it to everyone, right? So the fact that the judge is, oh, there was some big breach of his medical data, whatever information, it just didn't happen. It just did not happen. And I think that's what gives, to me, credence to what Corey Hopkins is saying. For those of you that missed it, I'll put it on the screen again. This is something that Corey Hopkins posted really just maybe 40 minutes ago about. I'm 99% sure that the judge mixed up Doc 112, which was not available to the public, with Doc 116, which was filed publicly at 2:22 and posted at 2:52 by Grant. So, and I am right now leaning on this. I believe that this is probably correct. I believe Corey probably has it right, because that does appear. That is the one X post, that 252 post. It is legal filings about this case. So it looks like a legitimate legal document, right? And it is the impoundment order, and it's at 252. I think that Corey's probably right. But again, nobody knows. Nobody knows, because the judge didn't bring receipts, it's just insane. So the first thing that comes up for me, and I see some of you like, what the hell actually happened? Nothing actually happened. That's kind of part of the point. Nothing happened, except the judge warned that if somebody does it again and panders to social media again and leaks documents again, that he has the authority to rule that Michael Proctor, no longer as a non-party to this matter, has to be deposed. That is what, it was a threat. It was a direct threat. Oh, you guys want to leak important medical information related to this case? Okay, well then I have the authority to say that Michael Proctor will not be involved in this matter. And then he lectured everybody about fairness. I swear to God, that's what happened. So we're going to take a listen to it now. It's pretty unbelievable, but the important parts to me are the second half, because again, it has the same feeling to it that the lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit that the House defendants dropped, or that the McCabe lawsuit against Karen and Aiden, that lawsuit, it has a similar feeling. It's that same, like in other words, Karen's team is using social media to sway public opinion to get into the mind of the jury to ultimately impact the decision. That is what he loosely alludes to. And that is disgusting. Because all of us know that is not what happened here. In fact, Karen's their efforts when it came to the jury was to try to find people. Remember how difficult it was for Karen's attorney, and the way that Massachusetts does this whole jury selection process? You don't really have but for a handful of challenges. You're not really allowed to ask certain questions. It's like a disgrace. So the idea that there's this secret evil plan to try to get into the heads of the jurors who don't exist yet it's insulting, is what it is. It's insulting. It's ignorance. And to me, it's outdated, but it's more of the same shit. It's that same good old boys absurdity, is what it is. That same good old boys Massachusetts club. And look at Judge Gildea, like he's basically could be a representative. Like do I have to even say anything else? Like, he is exactly the problem over and over again. This is what Karen keeps running into, is situations like a judge like this, who's old school, who doesn't like all the attention, doesn't like the fact that he has to feel like he's got a monkey on his back because eyes are on him. Somebody who's, these judges, they don't like that. They don't like having their decisions picked apart by social media. They don't like it, and they punish, in this case, Karen Reed, because of it. We've seen other people be punished because of it also. Right? We saw it with the Miles King situation and Rosemary Scapiccio when Michael Proctor and Adam Lally were supposed to testify. Right? They were supposed to come. We saw a little bit of Adam Lally, and I think Proctor wound up getting out of that, if I remember correctly. Right? Proctor didn't end up testifying in that case. That was with Judge Krupp. So it's not the first, it won't be the last, but it's disgusting. And what I think probably happened here is the judge was very sensitive to this whole social media thing. He's he's jumpy. Like, he's waiting for the shoe to fall, the next shoe to fall when it comes to what's going on simultaneously with social media. And because he's waiting for the next shoe to drop, he was really quick to jump on this without looking at what he was doing carefully, and he wound up making a mistake, right? A very costly one to Karen Reed, but who cares, right? The state obviously doesn't give a shit about her or her rights or what they do to her, obviously. I mean, no surprise there. But he was clear about lecturing us on Michael Proctor's rights and how we have to make sure that we're not essentially assuming that he's guilty before, I don't know. Guilty of what? I'm not sure, but that we have to be fair to Michael Proctor was Judge Gildea's decree today. So it's only 12 minutes. I will play it and I will stop it at certain points so that we can look more closely at what he's actually referencing. We're going to look at the ethics specific, whatever it's called, legal doctrine that he references, what it actually says, what it means, and what happens next, nobody knows, because at this moment, nothing really of substance happened, except that he reprimanded all of the attorneys, basically. And he warned them. Sorry, no, that's not true. He threatened them. He threatened them quite clearly that if this happens again, Michael Proctor will just not have to be deposed. And that'll be that, because I am the ultimate authority in this case. And what I say is what goes. Basically, that's basically what he said. Okay, so I am going to use the trial channel's footage of this. Thank you to the trial channel. Outstanding job cleaning up this footage and cleaning it up so quickly that we can actually hear and we get a pretty good image. So a huge thank you to the trial channel, who I believe just had a birthday. And if that is the case, happy birthday to the trial channel as well.
State of John Joseph O'Keefe III et al. Versus CNC Hospitality.
It starts out law and crime, and then I flip it to trial channel. So I'm not crazy.
LLC doing business as CF McCarthy's et al. Your Honor, with your permission, at this time, I will call the names of the attorneys in attendance and ask that they state that they are present for the purposes of the record. Thank you. Attorney Brillahante.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Horwitz.
Present.
Attorney Fell.
Present.
Attorney Buck.
Present.
Attorney Diller.
Present.
Attorney Beaton has been excused, Your Honor. Attorney Holstag.
Present.
Attorney Rose.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney St. George.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Donovan.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Deely.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney McCaffrey.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Hassett.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Maravellis.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Shipley has been excused. Attorney Tang.
Present, Your Honor.
Attorney Bell.
Present.
Your Honor, Attorneys Little and Mason are appearing via Zoom.
Attorney Jackson's getting some free publicity as well.
Attorney Jackson. Present. Attorney Selleck.
Yeah, so that was a little weird. I'm not sure why he said Attorney Jackson is getting some free publicity as well. I don't even know what to say about it, except once again, you know, for a guy who isn't supposed to be pandering to social media, all I can assume is that he's extremely aware of what's going on social media. He would be acutely aware that all of us are like, that it's a big deal that Alan Jackson has to fly in from LA, right? Like that he has a very acute awareness of how all of us are feeling about what's going on. Like he has his thumb on the pulse generally of what we would all be thinking. So, and because clearly he's not actually watching what we're saying and doing and doesn't really want to know, clearly he has this very obtuse idea about what goes on social media as it relates to this case. All he does know is that Alan Jackson is the big fancy LA lawyer. And I imagine in the same way that Bev didn't like that, none of them do, this judge is like jabbing him because of it, is giving him a hard time in the same way, in the exact same way. That's my guess about what's happening here.
Present. Attorney Rosenberg.
Present, Your Honor. You can sit down. Thank you. So thank you, counsel, for being here. I scheduled today to be in person because of the significance of what I was advised of last Friday, and because I find the quiet solemnity of the courtroom is a good reminder of the dignity by which courts are supposed to function. One comment there describes how every high-profile case now unfolds in two arenas, one governed by procedure and precedent, and the other by pixels, edits, and algorithms, and how the courtroom has become content and the law has become a spectacle.
What I wanted to know, do these guys have like assistants that are doing the writing of these for them, like the way they do with like the Supreme Court judges? Is this, do all judges have somebody else who's like a clerk, a law clerk, who's writing the actual words and they're just reading them? How does that go? Somebody, whoever knows, you know, the Massachusetts legal situation, if you know, let us know in the chat what the story is here. Is he actually writing this himself? Because I think he was very proud of that last little bit.
I recently held a hearing on a non-party motion for a protective order. I required the moving party to provide certain information. Such material was filed together with a motion to impound. A hearing that included the motion to impound was held on a Monday morning. I allowed the motion to impound. The affidavits of the moving party and the attorneys were impounded. Following that morning hearing, I found that there was insufficient information to support a delay in the deposition of the non-party from going forward. However, I further found that given the claims made in the filings, I would delay making a final decision on the motion until later that day to give the non-party's counsel the opportunity to supplement the record before me. I scheduled the matter for further hearing that afternoon at 4:15 with the expectation that there would be additional filings. At 2:22 p.m. that day, the non-party's attorney emailed the clerk of this court and all counsel of record, excepting one, additional materials in support of the motion for a protective order. The filing included a motion to impound additional materials. Exactly 30 minutes after the email to counsel of record of the additional material, which included sensitive and private medical information. Similar information to what was in the exhibits to the filing and marked provisionally impounded was posted to an X account at 2:52 p.m.
Okay, so here's the thing about this. None of us saw any posts on an X account that had Michael Proctor's medical information, like an actual document that had names, dates, places, where he was, whatever the condition was. And I know that for sure, because if that were there, think about it. Every one of us would know that. And by the way, tech savvy IDBH doing a tremendous job helping Denise out tonight. You guys got to give her mad props, doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for helping out today, tech savvy. So, right, like when we know for sure there was no actual leak from the attorneys, because first of all, there wasn't enough time. I mean, he's talking about literally 30 minutes. So you're mean to tell me that, the lawyers were that quick to grab that information from the moment it hits their email? They're, let's take it. Let's throw it back online. I mean, it's just absurd. It just didn't happen, right? So you would think that he would have stopped and really no, this can't be. Let's think this through rationally. There was only a certain amount of minutes between, right, when this email came through and when this post was on social media, right? Whatever. You would think there would have been more careful consideration, right? So make sure you get this right. But instead, what appears to have happened is he was made aware of it and then jumped. That's what it appears like to me, because I think Corey's right. I think this is a giant mishap, just a mix-up, because I'm certain that none of Karen's attorneys turned around and leaked Michael Proctor's medical documents. I mean, it's just, there's no world where that happened. These are professional attorneys, right? More than anything else, these are professionals.
Upon learning this information, I ordered that the parties and counsel provide a certification to the court as to all facts known to them as to any dissemination to anyone other than parties and counsel in this matter of any of the contents of the material impounded on June 8, 2026, and I scheduled this appearance for today. I received certifications from all party and counsel, 32 of them in total. No one apparently has disseminated, nor are they aware of any facts regarding the dissemination of the contents of impounded material to any person or entity other than the parties and counsel in this matter. However, somehow, an ex-account holder, not part of this case, apparently received information that was at least provisionally impounded. Orders of the court have been violated either directly or at the very least in spirit. If these orders are to have any effect, all parties involved must operate with integrity. Rule 13C of the Uniform Rules of Impoundment Procedure imposes a duty on all persons to protect the confidentiality of impounded material. Additionally, Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Conduct prohibits lawyers.
Right. So, and to be clear about that, remember that information that Aiden got, that tip that he got about where Michael Proctor was, that he had been at a facility, near Boston, a McLean subsidiary for mental health treatment. Then he was flying down to Florida. All of that was 2 days before this. It would have been before the impoundment order. So there's no way that would have been what he's referring to. It had to have been that 252, almost certainly that X post by Grant. I just don't know what else he could be referencing.
From making extrajudicial statements that they know or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. In cases like this, where all parties involved are aware of the public attention, I expect that everyone is taking every precaution to preserve confidential information, to follow the rules of the court, and to adhere to my orders. Because of the disclosure of sensitive private information, I temporarily stayed further discovery of the non-party.
Okay, so here it is. Here's the part, it's like the threat about Michael Proctor specifically, where he's saying because of the non-disclosure of sensitive medical information. Now, let me just remind everybody, to my knowledge, I don't think there has been a disclosure of, as far as I know, I don't think there has been. Otherwise, I have to believe one of us somewhere would have seen that. There would be a document that we would all be able to see and hold and look at that said what that medical information was. So this is the part that is just insanity. Where is this sensitive medical document that you're referencing that was leaked by somebody? Because where is it? So he's saying because of a disclosure that none of us think can find that happened on X at 2:52, which was 30 minutes after some email, whatever that he got, because of a disclosure, a medical disclosure related to Michael Proctor, now temporarily Michael Proctor's deposition is being stayed. So paused. No interactions with Michael Proctor for the time being. Okay. And remember what the judge said last time, or on a motion, that it was because of a phone call. Remember Michael Proctor, his family got a phone call. I don't know exactly what it was about, but they were getting threatening phone calls, allegedly, that were speaking to this medical disclosure, allegedly. That's what he initially said before this motion.
If necessary, I am fully prepared to make such order permanent as permitted by Rules 26 and 30. To any issue counsel may raise as to the management of discovery issues being within my discretion, I invite you to look at the following cases. In the 2003 case of Buster v.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is the threat. I am perfectly ready to make the decision that Proctor will have nothing to do with this case anymore. Basically, that is what he's saying here. And then he's going through the case law that supports his ability to do that, to make that decision.
George W. Moore, Inc., 438 Mass. 635. The SJC stated at page 653, in general, discovery matters are committed to the sound discretion of the trial judge. In a 2002 appeals court case, Mattoon versus the City of Pittsfield, 56 Mass. App Court 124, the court stated at page 131, trial judges have broad discretion to make discovery and evidentiary rulings conducive to the conduct of a fair and orderly trial. In the 1987 case of Solomon A. versus B. Gruhl, 399 Mass. 790, the SJC stated at page 799, the conduct and scope of discovery is within the sound discretion of the judge.
Right.
In Cronin versus Strayer.
So here he is. Hi, Sherry D. Big ups to Sherry D. How are you? Miss you. So here he's just saying, I have the authority. I am like the god of the room and I can do whatever I want. And here's why. So what I say goes. Now, remember, he's not going to let any of the attorneys in the room argue. Like, he's just here to, like, you know, the king to make his what he needs to say known to everybody in the room. Basically is issuing a threat to all of the attorneys. That's what he is doing. But this felt like it wasn't just directed at the attorneys. And I do want to make that clear. It felt like he was kind of talking to all of us too, in a way. So he hasn't quite gotten there yet, but it does start to feel that way towards the end of this. We're about halfway through.
392 Mass. 525, a 1984 case. The SJC stated at pages 535 to 536, we remind judges that the scope and timing of discovery is within their discretion. and the prevention of discovery abuse is sufficient justification for the authorization of protective orders. With this authority at hand, judges should not hesitate to exercise appropriate control over the discovery process. And finally, in the 1987 case of Campagna versus the Board of Directors of the Massachusetts Housing Finance Agency, 399 Mass 492, the SJC stated at page 503 that Rule 37 affords a judge broad discretion to impose whatever sanctions are just in order to ensure that the discovery process operates efficiently.
And that's a great point, Sherry. Sherry D says, why couldn't it have been somebody at the courthouse? Absolutely. Of course, right? Of course. It could have definitely been someone at the courthouse. It could have been Proctor's family. In fact, I saw people stating that, Elizabeth Proctor may have leaked some information. I don't know if that's true. I can't see, unless she was really scorned, and maybe she is. I don't know that you're going to do that, because it hurts you inadvertently. The more that you continue to foster a negative narrative about him, the more it hurts you. But I did see that. I'm sure some of you did as well. Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, it could have been anybody, but isn't that the point? Like, think about it. And this is what drives me crazy about these judges. Like, they just don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get that our interest in this case is not about clicks and views and likes. It's about justice. That all of us, like, there's a desperation, like when Colin's test scores and all of that information was leaked. It's, it just shows you, like, we're everywhere. When I see shit like this, I'm just going to play this really quickly. I love this. When you see this, how good is this? Like, how good is Yuri Buchanan on a cruise ship, drunk out of his mind, doing karaoke, and one of us is there on that ship taking videos? I just love it. Yuri Buchanan is funny. I remember during the trial when Yuri was testifying, because that was one of those testimonies that I had the time in real time to watch. So it was like days long. I think it was 3 days. And I just sat and looked at his head for 3 days. And by the end, I was like, I love this guy. Like, he's a trip. He's funny. Like, now maybe that was just a byproduct of staring at his head for 3 days, going a little crazy, right? Listening to trial testimony. But there's something very funny about Yuri Buchanan, and you gotta love this. That there's just the humor that, like, he's at a Dave Matthews concert, and one of us are seated behind him and get a picture. How good is that? Oh my God! Wouldn't you love to be on a cruise, though? Come on, wouldn't you pay money to be on a cruise and then see Yuri Buchanan drunk doing at the bar on a stage? Oh, it's so funny. I'm just gonna play it one more time because it's so good. Oh God. I mean, he's so funny. He doesn't know the words, but he's like, whatever.
The malicious publication of private information concerns me. Whatever opinion that one may have of a non-party, even if warranted, such an opinion does not allow for the disparate treatment of such individuals. All people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice.
So this is the part that I think, like, starts to make the hair on the back of your neck stand straight up when you hear this judge starting to lecture about fair, equity, justice. Like, I'm sorry, what planet are we on again? You're talking about Michael Proctor, right? Like, is that the person you're talking about right now? I think it is. It's just insane. And even he knows how insane it is. I'm going to rewind it a little bit so you can hear the whole thing.
disparate treatment of such individual. All people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice, regardless of any personal characteristic, as abhorrent as some of them may be. What I am looking for.
Okay, I see what's happening here. All right, so I just realized it right now based on this language. I need to know whether or not he wrote this. That would be helpful. That's a legitimate, we need to know that. Because I think what may have happened here is that because of the fact that Michael Proctor is so abhorrent, because he's a rotten, horrible, white supremacist, stupid, all the terrible things that anyone could even imagine, and also was a police officer for like, I don't know, a decade, something like that. Because of that, there is this sensitivity to like kind of a knee-jerk desire to want to nip in the bud the fact that, right, there might be these disclosures. In other words, it might actually be because this is Michael Proctor that he was so quick to, like, you know, get everybody together, make all the lawyers come back in the room just so he could scold them publicly. It very well may be because of the fact that it's Michael Proctor and something sensitive, and that the social media, all of us, are going to have a lot of feelings about, right?
Is for the parties is adequate assurances that their discovery served justice and not any desire to weaponize the rules for pettiness and profit. If the parties and lawyers would enter into an agreement to hold private, personal information in confidence, and if the terms were acceptable to me, I would consider entering it as an order of the court so that any violation.
Now, this part I didn't quite understand, because isn't there already an implicit agreement that confidential material is going to be held as confidential? Like, isn't that implicit? Why would both parties need to come up with some type of special agreement that says we're not going to leak information? I mean, aren't they already supposed to not leak confidential information like medical documents? This part I didn't understand. What do you mean that you want the parties, all of the parties involved, to come up with some agreement? I just didn't understand this.
Violation would be grounds for a contempt finding and appropriate sanction, including dismissal or default.
And just to be clear, what he said here was that if this continues, it could warrant a dismissal or a default. In other words, you know, I'm going to say that Karen loses by default, right? Or we're just going to go right to the damages, collecting damages phase of this case, which I don't even know what to say. I'm not an attorney. This sounds insane to me, but that's what he's saying. He's threatening. This is another threat.
In order would need to be more than a stipulation that deposition testimony can only be used for the purposes of this case. I encourage the attorneys to confer and to seek to reach an agreement. In the absence of an agreement, I will consider whether to enter an order based on my plenary authority to control, manage, and oversee the conduct of discovery. While you are conferring and seeking to reach an agreement, I will again remind you, as I have quite often, that the discovery clock is ticking. My final request to counsel with an appearance in this matter is to familiarize yourself with Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Conduct relative to publicity. The rule sets forth a basic general prohibition against.
Okay, so this is the part that I wanted us to pay closer attention to, because I do think that this is significant for us. Blessed Mama No, me. I want to say Mima, but I know it's not. I know I'm gonna get it. I promise. Yeah, right? No, I don't know. It's how do I say it, blessed mama? How do I say it? All right. Anyway, we will get there a different time. Judge is stifling free speech because now popular crime tubers with reach could fear their words will piss him off. I know. So I had that same thought, right? And adversely affect Karen. I had that same thought. That's what I was saying earlier about how I think this does have reach. Like this was a threat to all of us. Oh, better not say the wrong thing because then Karen could get in trouble. Better not disseminate information amongst each other because then Karen could get in trouble. And that's exactly what I think they don't understand. Like this just, it isn't about, oh, we want to share information because it's going to get somebody clicks or likes on. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, that's not my motive. My motive has always been, particularly when it comes to this case, to be able to communicate with each other so we can get the word out, so that we can tell the whole world about this horrific nightmare injustice that is going on with Karen Read at the center of it, right? And you're absolutely right. This inadvertently is a way to try to stifle free speech by saying, oh, better think twice before you post that because could get Karen in trouble, and Michael Proctor may not have to be a part of this case anymore. I have the authority to just rule that way. I know. Thank you for your $4.99. Blessed mama. I'm going to do it. I know. You see how I can get it sometimes and not other times? I don't know what it is. I don't know what that is. I got a bad feeling since $49.99. Oh my God, I have so many feelings about this judge. Me too. But more than anything, I have feelings for you, Samantha. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate you so very, very much. Love you. Love you too. More than words can say. I appreciate you so much. You guys are the best. Definitely the best. And you are one of my favorite people in the whole world. Got a bad feeling without a doubt. And you know, I know Corey Hopkins, we chat sometimes, and she's from the very beginning was like, I don't like this judge. I don't like this judge. I don't think this judge likes Karen's team. And I know that lawyers can be kind of pessimistic, generally speaking, like they can be, of course, because, you know, you got to be ready for the worst. So I'm like, I'm just like praying that Corey's just being, you know, doing her due diligence at being a lawyer. But today, boy, all I kept thinking was, man, was she right or was she right? She was right. So let's take a look at this. We're going to take a look at this more closely. And thank you so much, Got a Bad Feeling, at what this rule actually is, because this is what he wants us to do, right? He wants us to go take a closer look at the rule. So we're going to take a look at that in a minute.
So lawyers making statements that the lawyer knows or should know will have a substantial likelihood on materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. The rule applies to lawyers.
Know or should know that will prejudice materially a proceeding. The lawyers know or should know will materially, let me see, hold on, prejudice a proceeding. Let's hear it again.
The lawyer knows or should know will have a substantial likelihood on materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. The rule applies to lawyers who are or have been involved in the investigation or litigation of a case and their associates. As the comment to the rule notes, it is difficult to strike a balance.
All right, so when you go to the rule, which we'll look at in a minute, This is a comment one underneath the Massachusetts rule about trial publicity. It is difficult to strike a balance between protecting the right to a fair trial and safeguarding the right of free expression. Preserving the right to a fair trial necessarily entails some curtailment of the information that may be disseminated about a party prior to trial, particularly where trial by jury is involved. If there were no such limits, the result would be the practical nullification of the protective effect of the rules of forensic decorum and the exclusionary rules of evidence. Right. Okay. So he's saying that there are certain things that we're trying to keep away from the eyes of the jury, and we have to be mindful of that, right, prior to getting to that phase of, this case, right? On the other hand, there are vital social interests served by the free dissemination of information about events having legal consequences and about legal proceedings themselves, right? What could possibly be a better example of that than this case? The public has a right to know about threats to its safety and measures aimed at assuring its security. Right? What are we talking about? We're talking about police officers. It also has a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings, particularly in matters of general public concern. Furthermore, the subject matter of legal proceedings is often of direct significance in debate and deliberation over questions of public policy. So this is what he's referring to right here in what he is saying.
Balance between protecting the right to a fair trial and safeguarding the right of free expression. However, preserving the right to a fair trial for everyone necessarily entails some curtailment of information that may be disseminated prior to trial, especially where trial by jury is involved. If there were no such limits, the result would be the practical nullification of the protective effect of the rules of forensic decorum and the exclusionary rules of evidence. The rule takes into consideration that the public has a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings, particularly in matters of general public concern. However, I'm not so sure that churning the waters to generate social media coverage necessarily can result in a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings.
Let's look at this sentence. This is an important sentence, and this is where he kind of says, this is a big F you to all of us. So let's look at this. He clearly is letting it leak out how he feels about social media. All right, hang on.
Legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings.
All right, one more time.
Legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings, particularly in matters of general public concern. However, I'm not so sure that churning the waters to generate social media coverage
However, I'm not so sure that churning the waters to generate social media coverage, so in other words, content, necessarily can result in a legitimate
interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings.
Necessarily can result in the judicial interest in the conduct of proceedings. Does anybody know what that meant? However, he says, I'm not so sure that churning the waters to generate social media coverage necessarily can result in I think this is kind of cloaked arrogance, but I don't know exactly what he's trying to say here. Can result in a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings. Let me know if you guys have any idea what the hell he's talking about there, because that's confusing.
Read the rule, especially if you have never done so. Adhere to it, or be ready to face the consequences for failing to do so. I remind counsel...
Ready? There's another threat. Read the rule. or be ready to face the consequences of failing to do so.
Of what one commentator called the quiet expectation of fairness that we have as citizens. Such expectation is based on the framework the founders of our country built 250 years ago and trusted future generations to maintain. Counsel, do your part to maintain the quiet expectation of fairness. Do not
the quiet expectation of fairness. I mean, this guy, right? Like the balls on this guy. Is he kidding? When he said this part was when I like lost my head, because the quiet expectation of fairness. I mean, do you know that the O'Keefe family have no problem telling the whole world that they know Karen is guilty because they got a feeling. They just know. They knew before they ever spoke to an investigator, because they just know. Because they got a feeling, Judge. Do you know that? Do you know that's... Yep. They have feelings about it. That's the big fair evidence that we're dealing with here. Because remember, we're in the O'Keefe v. Reed case. That's what this is. That's where we are. Can be a little confusing because there's a number of these happening all at once. And discovery is supposed to be done by the end of August, right? Or like the third week in August or something. It's July. So I just, the idea that this guy has the balls to mention fairness is like, is he kidding? Do not succumb to the attraction of seeking. This should be fun.
succumb to the attraction of seeking to influence this case through social media.
So there's the line. This was the line that concerned me. This is the line that concerned me. Do not succumb essentially to the temptation to try to influence the outcome of this case through social media. This is what started to ring that same like feeling of, oh, this is Karen and Aiden colluding to brainwash all of us. Right? That's what this feels like. That's what this language is sort of trending towards for me. And that's dangerous stuff, right? Because that's in the same line of vein as, oh, Aiden intentionally threatening the witnesses, quote unquote, right? Because he's afraid they're going to testify, which is, it's so absurd. And the people in that house know how absurd it is, right? The House defendants know that there is no world where Aiden Carney was intimidating them so that they didn't testify. Like, they all know it. It is the joke of the century, how any of them can even speak to it without laughing, like, bah, ha, ha, because it's so absurd. But now we have the judge sort of echoing rhetoric. That's what it is. It's rhetoric. Like, these are like talking points from the other team, is what this is starting to sound a lot like to me. That's what this sounds like.
Be what a trial lawyer should be, one that tries their case in the courtroom. And remember the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 221, Section 28, relative to the oath of office for an attorney in Massachusetts, which provides, in part, I solemnly swear that I will do no falsehood. I will delay no man for lucre or malice, but I will conduct myself in the office of an attorney within the courts according to the best of my knowledge and discretion, and with all good fidelity, as well to the courts as my clients. So help me God.
And at the end of the day, the irony here, let's just not lose sight of this, is that this very well, and maybe even most likely, is a mistake. is a mistake that he made, that this guy, this judge, has made, because either him, a clerk, somebody that works in or around his office, mistakenly believed, I guess, that the wrong specific document was made public at 2:52 on June 8th. For whatever reason, that is very likely what has happened here. Because remember, if there was a legitimate leak, wouldn't we all have seen it? Wouldn't we have known about it? Wouldn't there be a piece of paper somewhere, a post somewhere, something that says, oh, this is the medical information about Michael Proctor that the judge was trying to impound? But that doesn't exist. So the judge has taken it upon himself to, how about resources and wasting money? All of these people, all these lawyers, it's just, it's almost, it's breathtaking is what it is. It's breathtaking. And it's just insanity. And it's been clear, let's not pretend, it's been clear all along that the judge wants to make clear and assert his authority, which, okay, fine. I get it. This is a massive case. There's massive interest. There's thousands of attorneys that you have to navigate around and deal with. And he's trying to rein it all in. And I get that. But don't you think then you should do your homework too, sir? Don't you think that you might want to double check your work? Make sure that there was an actual leak, that a document was improperly disclosed before you drag everybody in here before like the second biggest holiday in America, so that it costs everybody thousands of dollars to travel in from wherever they are to reprimand them and make 3 separate threats. It's just insane. It's so insane. It's so insane. And then talk about fairness, because Michael Proctor, his rights are what we should seek to all protect and care about.
I wish all of you a happy 4th of July on the anniversary of our America's 250-year-old democracy. May it continue to succeed with all of us working to maintain the rule of law. Thank you.
Couldn't get out of there fast
For
enough,
the record,
right?
this matter is
He's,
continued
running
July
out the
10th,
door.
2026 at 2 p.m. for hearing on motions to compel the criminal 4th session.
Alan Jackson.
Court stands in recess. There's no opportunity to be heard?
There obviously no opportunity to be heard.
I was unaware. I'm just covering for Clark Donovan today.
I'm just covering.
Is there an opportunity before everybody departs to let the judge know that we would like to be heard?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's what we get there. And then we see Attorney Little, and we see oh my God, what you guys, what's his name? The intern that was hired by Alan Jackson. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Woke. Mr. Woke, right? Isn't it Woke? I remember that because Woke. I remember mixing them up all the time during the second trial. So there it is. And that's what all of the insanity was about today. That's what some of the uproar was about. Basically, you had the lawyers being threatened by this judge that if there's any more leaks, but the craziest thing about all of this, and I could see if there really was a leak, I get that, right? But I think the thing that, and honestly, I really think, this is my personal opinion, I have no way to know if this is true, this is just a guess, but I have to wonder whether the House defendants in their McCabe v. Karen and Aiden defamation suit, I have to wonder if those attorneys aren't thinking, maybe this wasn't, maybe we should have done a little bit more homework before we got into this case, because I think it's pretty easy to make the mistake and and I'll tell you why I think this, right? The fact that they lied to us in court, matter of factly, and said, oh, Colin is at Fort Jackson in South Carolina and he's doing his basic training and he's going to be there until the end of August. And the fact that they stood up in a courtroom and said that and didn't think that we would all find out that that wasn't the case, that to me speaks to the ignorance on their part and a lack of understanding of the gravity of the interest, because it's not just a popular case. I think it would be a mistake to treat this like a popular case, right? Where there's a lot of eyeballs, because this isn't just a group of people. Like, we're not just people that care. We do care, but we're also like really seriously want to see justice here, and enough is enough. I mean, this isn't our first rodeo, and at this point, unbelievably, a year after Karen's acquittal, we are all still just as motivated as we've ever been before to try to see justice happen here. So I have to believe that this, these big fancy attorneys that the House defendants went and dragged into this, I have to believe they just don't know what they don't know what they got themselves into. I kind of have to believe that, right? Because what other conclusion could I possibly come to? At Andrea P356, happy 5-month anniversary. At least one other person in the chat already said this, but Aiden's 1052 tweet can be changed to another time zone to look like it was posted at 2:52. Yes, right. And that's kind of what I figured when I saw the 10:52. We were talking about this, the difference between like UTC time and all of that. It can. I have to remember. I have to look back. I saw the 10:52 tweet, and I don't remember what it was. Right. I think it was like a general. The thing about. No, because this was before that. I got to I'll double check what it actually said, because this is before he sat for the actual deposition. This is back on June 8th. I saw it, but I didn't see anything that looked like a medical disclosure. So, and even if that was at the wrong time in the wrong time zone, obviously it couldn't have been that tweet, because on Eastern time, it happened at 10:52, which would have been before when the judge was talking about, which is obvious, I guess. We have a new YouTube member at Squirrel. Welcome, Squirrel, to the party. At Dancing in the Pea Patch. Oh my God, look at this dog. Oh my God, how cute at Dancing in the Pea Patch is that? It looks like it could have some Chihuahua in her, this little dog. Very, very cute. And welcome. At Mike M 10974 sends $2. Fam, near 70 years of Leo combined. It's common talk. Fam, near 70 years of Leo combined. What does that mean? Somebody explain this to me. Fam, near 70 years of Leo combined. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you're saying there. Janae W79 says, I'd say the judge and everyone who tried to manipulate and coerce Sully into testifying something he never said, they're all scrambling. I think I started this. Obviously, you guys know about the drama that continues to unfold with Sully, who was the third fellow with John O'Keefe at CF McCarthy's the night that he would lose his life. He is last name Sullivan, James Sullivan. He's continuing to tell all on social media, and he said some really helpful things. I think it was like in the last couple of days, made a comment like, these guys want to make it sound like everybody in the town is behind them, is supporting them. And I can pull them up in a minute, but it's not. Like, the people supporting them are friends and family of them, right? And the rest of the town wants to see justice and knows that Karen didn't do this. So good for him for speaking out finally. And I'm sure you've all heard that it also has come out with Sully that Michael Proctor, wrote down in his report the interview that he did with James Sullivan, saying that Karen was toasted, that was a direct quote. And of course, when he did finally sit down with Lally, who, by the way, interestingly mentions him by name in his opening statement in trial 1, mentions Sully, before he had spoken with him, when he did speak with him, and Sully says, yeah, I never said that. I didn't say what Proctor said I said. I didn't see Karen toasted. I didn't see her drunk. Of course, Lally just quietly didn't call him and reminded him on the way out that he was subpoenaed, right? Or sorry, sequestered. Meaning like, oh, you can't talk about any of this and you can't watch any of this. Just a reminder. Yeah, so shady. These people are just so shady. At Diane 1166 says, I feel like Gildea's issue with social media began with Diller's clickbait lawyering comment that no one even understood what it meant. Yeah, I don't know what it meant. I don't understand what it meant. I'm sure that whenever he was assigned, I don't know how judges are assigned cases in Massachusetts, but I have to believe that whenever that was, I have to believe that, there was a sit down that was like, all right, Judge Gildea, so we're about to like ruin your life before you retire. I'm sure retirement is around the corner. And so we're about to dump on you these civil cases. We apologize in advance. They must have known. He must have known to some degree that this, Karen retrial in Massachusetts, particularly in Eastern Massachusetts, is like, if you're in the legal community, you got to know about this case, right? Regardless of where you fell, you must know it exists and that it's a big, huge deal. But yes, that clickbait lawyering comment was so bizarre. And Diller, by the way, who just seems like not only the world's like biggest asshole, he really does seem like the most arrogant, like slimy guy. Like he just has that air about him of like, just an arrogance that's palpable. He's detestable. He really is not a likable character in this whole story. And yeah, I kind of feel like whenever Diller opens his mouth, he says something that is questionable. We haven't seen him a lot lately, which I like. I can't stand him. I out of all of the attorneys that we have dealt with, and I hated Hank Brennan. Like I hated Hank Brennan, and you guys know how I feel about Adam Lally. I think this guy might even be worse because the fact that he is actually representing the family, like the family of John O'Keefe. He thinks like he is entitled to the extreme. Like, I'm the guy that's representing the family. It is so dangerous. And that's what happened with the state too, mind you. Like, because they felt that they had the victim's family on their side, they could do no wrong. And that's why they were entitled to double down at every turn. Because the family, we have to do what's right for the victims. That's what you hear, by the way, Greg Connor reiterating. And remember, if you have a vote in Norfolk County or you know somebody who does, my God, talk to them, beg them, do whatever you have to make sure that they vote for Adam Deitch. As Kit Gracie reminds us, hello, Kit, happy 8-month anniversary. Can you imagine how Adam Deitch is seething other than this decision? I think about this a lot because he really does have a lot more information and just a broader view. And though I know that they turned over 3,100 pages of exculpatory information, imagine what didn't make it in that lot, right? Like, what do you think he saw that they decided at the end of the day didn't actually reach that bar? You wonder, like, what more Did he know, and does he know? Because we know that he was, remember, investigating corruption. Now, the other thing that's going on, and this is something that I have to loop back and speak to Mitzi about, because the Sandra Birchmore situation, this is very interesting. I had learned about the Sandra Birchmore case way before I had known anything about Karen Reed. And going back to that case, I did not realize that Mike Lank was the officer, the first officer on the scene. Like, I did not know that Officer Mike Lank was the officer first on the scene for the suicide of Sandra Birchmore and obviously the death of John O'Keefe. Did not know that. And there's a couple other things. So I'm going back. I decided, you know what? I'm going to go back and listen to the Sandra Birchmore case again, because I went through a couple of podcasts, God, years ago. I mean, this was like maybe 2024. It was a while ago, before 2023. And before I knew anything about Karen Reed. And I decided, you know what? I got to know more about the cops, exactly where is the crossover, how much crossover is there between, right, the Canton police, the Massachusetts State Police, how much involvement and how much crossover is there? Because if the feds are still investigating Sandra Birchmore, and they are, because they have a trial to put on, so they are still investigating, and corruption is the centerpiece of that investigation, you do wonder, and this is the only legitimate argument that I've ever heard for the possibility that there is feds looking at Karen Reed and John O'Keefe, because to me, that's extraordinarily unlikely, with the exception of the fact that because of Sandra Birchmore, there is a possibility that there's crossover and leakage, from one case into the other. So interesting, but I still stand by, really, maybe the only way we will ever truly see justice for John O'Keefe is if Adam Deitch is elected into that office. I just don't see it any other way. Just don't see it any other way. Disgusting. At Fiona Houston 2140 sends $10, I think Australian dollars. Random question. Is it true that Proctor was not originally, yes, rostered as the on-call out officer the night John was murdered? That is an excellent question, Fiona Houston. He was not. So I have the document. Let me see if I can find it really quick. So the on-call list does not have Michael Proctor anywhere near it. Yuri Buchanan is the on-call supervisor, but Michael Proctor is nowhere in or around the days in question. Not the 28th, not the 29th, not the 27th, not the 30th. Michael Proctor does not appear anywhere. Could he have swapped positions with somebody else? Maybe. What might be interesting, though, and I should do this, and I can do this. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick, if I can find it. I'm not sure that I labeled it correctly, so it might be too difficult for me to find it right now. Let me see. I'm looking to see if I have the on-call list here. So he is definitely not on it. The answer is yes, he is not on this on-call list. So unless there is a different list or he had maybe switched with somebody, Michael Proctor was not the person on call on the schedule on that night, January 29th or 28th at all. He's not anywhere near the list. Now, like I said, could he have, switched with another police officer, sure. The guy whose name is on the list, interestingly, is nobody I'd ever heard of. That's why I'm trying to find it so that I know somebody in the chat will definitely remember the name. Let me see. But it's a name that is just not familiar at all. And I'm going to give it one more go to see if I can find it. You know what? It actually might be in my... I thought I saved it in there. No. Okay. So I'll try to find it maybe during the break. See if I can pull it up for you. It's a great question. And the answer to me is no. Now, here is what I need to do. The only way that I will be able to trust whether or not he really was on call would be to go do an analysis of the answer that Proctor and Buchanan give about this. Now, here's what I can tell you, though, for sure, because I just watched this a few times recently, including maybe with you guys like 2 weeks ago. When Proctor is asked by Adam Lally on the witness stand about being on call, Lally is very careful to never ask him directly, were you on call that night? Instead, he asks a very general question. He says, explain to us the on-call system at the time, or something like that. So in other words, Proctor launches into a general description of how on-call went then. Oh, generally, Sergeant Buchanan would make the schedule, and he goes on this big explanation. And then Lally, in a follow-up question, asks, and that was generally what was going on that night? And he says yes. And that's it for Proctor. So the question is, how does Yuri Buchanan answer that? If there's deception from Yuri Buchanan, then we can be without a doubt certain that he was not on call. So then the question is, and this is a question right now for you guys, why would you want Michael Proctor hand selected for this? Like, why would anyone on earth anywhere want Michael Proctor to be the guy in charge of this investigation? I mean, based on what you know, it can't be for any like legitimate reason, right? It can't be because he's the greatest investigator we have. Certainly that can't possibly be the case because it's Michael Proctor. In fact, I mean, he's babysat the whole first day, right? Buchanan is with him the whole time. Brian Tully's the one making all the decisions. Like, remember, Tully's like, oh yeah, I was, supervising from my cell phone, which I can do from anywhere. They were calling me, starting in the morning throughout the day. So, Proctor doesn't have any authority. So I cannot imagine why anyone would select Michael Proctor to be the guy in charge of this investigation. But that is what happened, Fiona Houston, because he's not on the on-call schedule and he's lying or being deceptive when he's asked about it. I mean, he is deliberately not telling us I was on call. And if you're refusing to say that, what does that leave us to conclude? Something's up, right? Something's up for sure. At Fiona Houston sends 2140 and sends $10. I love your insight. Thank you for everything, beautiful Samantha, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. And thank you for being here and thank you for your support. And I love that you're here all the way. Look at the kangaroos. I love it. I love that you're here all the way from Australia. That's like my favorite thing in the whole world is that we come together from all over the world, quite literally. And that's the other thing. I just don't think that judges or anybody else, these visiting attorneys, because that's what they are. This defamation guy, he's a visitor. Like, they don't quite get it, right? Like, this is the land we have built. This is our little world now, right? Like, you're a visitor here, dear, but like, this is the world that we know we built. We have been living and breathing in this case every single day. Some of us for many years now, not myself. I've got about 2 years deep. Some of you are there from day one, all in from day one. So these civil attorneys, these are newcomers, right? I don't think they quite get our level of commitment to seeing this thing through, no matter how long it takes. At Chat Signal sends 199, even if different counties, yes, judges in cahoots. Great question from Tennessee. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because these are neighboring counties. So these people all know each other, right? I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that. Listen, somebody somewhere decided to take these different judges and Brian Albert and put them in a civil suit. Apparently, I don't know what the situation was. I don't know why. I guess the person who allegedly filed that civil lawsuit was in real estate. So we're going to find out. I'm sure it'll be news very soon, but wouldn't that be interesting? So yeah, I mean, they do know each other. They all know each other. They're close. And even just think about Adam Deitch. Like, he was living in Boston, I think, proper, and then sold his condo and moved to Quincy, I believe, so that he could live in Norfolk County. But he was investigating this county. So it's a small community. Like this, in and around Boston, it's a very small, like, little world. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think Canton is like 20 minutes from Boston. It's pretty close. It's close. It's very separate. You don't feel like you're anywhere near Boston when you're in Canton. It has more of actually like a Western Massachusetts vibe. The town itself, it's very New Englandy, kind of picturesque New England, bucolic even. But it's close. It's very, very close. So I think absolutely. I think they all know each other. Many of them, like their cousins married each other. I mean, it's a very small insular community. And then on top of it already being a small community, then you have like the community of the legal people, right? Like the lawyers and the judges in these very small counties. So to me, they very much know each other without a doubt. At Love Boston sends $9.99. So happy to be here. My favorite YT channel. Thank you for all you do, Sam. Thank you for being here. You're the best. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. At JDT Character Girl is a member for 1 month. Happy 1 month anniversary. How patronizing from this judge. Lawyers must be peed off. And they were. I mean, Alan Jackson was apparently furious. And I think Karen was furious from what I understood too, from just hearing from different people reporting after the hearing. And rightfully so. I mean, this was her dime. It's her money. How much? I would be curious if we all had to get on a flight to California tomorrow, or how much notice did the judge give? 2, maybe 3 days max. Was that how much it was? Like 3 days. If we had to fly to California in 3 days, how much do you think that would cost? It probably wasn't going to be cheap, right? Not to mention you got to get hotel rooms. I mean, the whole thing is going to be extremely expensive. Not to mention your time. How much time? I can't even imagine what a guy like Alan Jackson bills. I'm sure he's probably not billing his full rate for Karen Reed, but still, it's a freaking fortune. Now, granted, I will say that it does appear like Karen Reed is going to be a very wealthy woman someday. I certainly hope so, and she deserves every dime of it for the freaking battle that. I mean, I was looking at her actually today. She looked thin to me today. I don't know if maybe I just had, I've seen Karen in person before, and she's small. She's very petite, obviously beautiful. But she looked more skinny to me, and I thought I got nervous for her, like almost in this parental way. I was like, oh, she looks more thin and kind of frail or fragile or something. Because I do worry about Karen after we saw her not that long ago, maybe 6 months ago. We hadn't heard from her. This was before the rotten tomato. What is it? Not tomatoes, rotten mangoes podcast interview. She, clearly talked about feeling tired and obviously has been through a pretty serious trauma. So she looked just too thin to me, and I wanted to like nurture her. I felt like my great grandmother who'd be like, "You gotta eat, you gotta eat." It's funny. But yeah, this is incredibly stressful. Could you imagine being in this fight every freaking day? Like, this is, come on. You got like these Diller, like, I mean, can you imagine having to deal with an asshole like that every single day, like who's coming after you with the full force? It's just, I can't. Or to deal with Jen McCabe every day, like, oh, no. Yeah, it's horrible. And then to have the judge lecturing you and your attorneys about ethics. Like, is this guy out of his freaking mind? Has he lost his mind? And we're going to take a look at that exact rule in just a minute. At Retire Yesterday 411 sends $10. He gets more mad at this fake leak than when Reed's team was not getting. I know. That's a really good point. Brian Albert has blackmail stuff on everyone. Wonder what he has on this judge. Really wonder what he had on Bev. It's not a bad, it's a completely legitimate question given the behavior that we have seen from these people. They obviously bent over backwards for Brian Albert. He obviously has friends in very high places for whatever reason. And would it surprise any of us if he has pull or something on everybody? Maybe, but I think it's probably something less about what he has on them and more that he has a friend at a very, very, very high level who's saying, back off and do everything you can to protect him. And maybe it's because the level at which he was operating as a law enforcement professional, right? I mean, he was given the authority to run his own elite law enforcement squad, bounty hunting squad or whatever, to work, the toughest cases. I don't know. That alone, I could see certainly, entitling some of this. It doesn't feel like quite enough to warrant what we have seen. So I hear you. Certainly could be. God only knows. Truly, God only knows. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Retire yesterday. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's see here. Okay. So this is the rule that he wants everybody to make sure and go home and study. Which again, it was so like patronizing. It's a really good way to put it. Okay. So here's the rule 3.6 on trial publicity. A lawyer who is participating or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter shall not make an extrajudicial statement that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. A lawyer, okay, I'm just trying to figure out what does this actually mean. Lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of a public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing. Now, let's think about this. How would, and maybe it does, you guys tell me, does Michael Proctor's medical information materially prejudice potential jurors in any way? I mean, how is that even material? I get that it's confidential. I'm not suggesting that it's not a big deal. I get it, right? It's medical information, and we would all want our medical information to be protected. That part I get, but I don't see how that is something that would have materially helped Karen's team. So I don't know about that. I just don't know how I don't know how this applies here, I guess. Notwithstanding paragraph A, a lawyer may state the claim, offense, or defense involved, and except when prohibited by law, the identity of the persons involved, the information contained in public record, that an investigation of the matter is in progress, the scheduling or result of any step in the litigation, a request for assistance in obtaining evidence and information necessary thereto, a warning of danger concerning the behavior of a person involved when there is reason to believe that there exists the likelihood of a substantial harm to an individual or to the public interest. Okay. So these are exceptions, it appears, right? Notwithstanding paragraph A lawyer may state. So this is stuff that they can say, stuff that's in the public record. But again, if we go back to the A part of the rule, reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. I mean, do we not think that Michael Proctor's text messages would be the thing that would be prejudicing, if anything? Right? I mean, his medical records probably would be more in the best interest of Michael Proctor to leak than in Karen's best interest, because it kind of makes you feel bad for him. Like, oh, he's so messed up after all of this that now he's got to be in a mental institution, right? Something like that. And then these are the other exceptions in a criminal case. We don't need to know about that. Then there's C, notwithstanding paragraph A lawyer may make a statement that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial, undue, prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. Oh, that's interesting. So this applied like during the Karen Reed, before the first trial, when, let's say, Michael Morrissey made his public statement about evidence, and then let's say Alan Jackson decided to come out and make some kind of, rebuttal argument. I think that's what this is speaking to here. But limited to such information as is necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. And then D, no lawyer associated in a firm or a government agency with a lawyer subject to paragraph A shall make a statement prohibited by paragraph A. Sometimes the law just reads like, all right, what is this, a joke? This rule does not preclude a lawyer from replying to charges of misconduct publicly made against him or her, or from participating in the proceedings of a legislative, administrative, or other investigative body. Okay, so I mean, this is nothing new to all of us. We have been hearing about this very ethical rule since, if you followed these trials, you've been hearing about it since the beginning, because you've seen how, Karen's team has had to carefully navigate public disclosures, how they're able to speak to things that are in public documents, but they're not able to speak to things that aren't, right? So this has been something that if you've been watching this case closely, you're utterly familiar with. And to me personally, I don't see anything in here about medical records of Mike. I just don't, to me, it doesn't seem like this applies even to the situation that we're in, because that's that's something that all of us have a right to protect, right? So that particular disclosure is sensitive, period, the end. And I just don't see any of those lawyers treating Michael Proctor's medical information like in a joking way or looking to disseminate that to the public. I just don't. And, all of us have been tracking this group of people, Karen's lawyers, for a very long time. Can you guys imagine, Alan Jackson leaking medical, Proctor's medical documents? I just don't see it. I just don't. So, I mean, that's the rule that the judge is adamant that we get to know. So there you go. Now you know it. And I don't even see how it applies here. You guys can help me. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. I just think he is overreacting because he anticipated preemptively before anything came out, he was anticipating that something would leak out. That was his fear. This judge, that is what it appears to me like. He was afraid this was going to happen. He's been waiting, like almost hyper vigilant, ready to jump at the first sign of anything like this happening. And because he was so hyper vigilant, he most likely did not stop to double check his work and jump the gun too quickly. That is what it appears like could have happened here. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe there is some medical disclosure that I do not know about that was leaked by someone somewhere. I just have to believe that if that was the case, we would have seen it. Someone would have seen it. You guys would have seen it. I would have seen it. We would know. And so far, the only thing that any of us can come up with is something that was on the docket that Grant reposted that was actually the order of impoundment itself. And then whatever Aiden was telling us that somebody emailed him. And that's like, you know, that's what journalists do. And whether we like it or not, whether people like it or not, Aiden is a journalist. It's not a newsflash. Right? So whether this judge likes it or not, that's the way it is. Oh, it's so annoying. It's just so annoying. This, you know, sometimes like, oh, and as a side note, so I'm sure, I don't know how many of you were following the Blaze Taylor case. One of you asked me to take a look at it. So I did. And of course, once I took a look at it and did the analysis, then I was like, oh, there's a lot of indicators of guilt here. So then I went back in the days that would follow, like last few days, and just looked at more of the actual evidence and realized, oh, wow, yeah, there's actual evidence of his guilt as well. And for those of you that are interested, there was a guilty verdict. He was found guilty on all 4 counts. Now, in this state, there is the jurors go right back. So they come back, they give their verdict, and apparently they just go right back and they go into the sentencing part of the whole thing. So there was actually like a sentencing hearing immediately following the verdict where I think like people got up and said their piece, like the victims were able to be heard. And then the jury had to go back and deliver, I guess, the sentence. Now, I don't know what the outcome of that was. I left to come be with you guys, but interesting case. Interesting, because there were some like screwed up labs and there were some mistakes, police mistakes. There were some, questionable logistical issues with this case. So I wasn't sure if it was going to go one way or the other with the circumstantial evidence, or, people like the lab stuff. They like that hard evidence. But this jury, less than 2 hours or just about 2 hours, they found him guilty. Second-degree murder, interestingly, for Jade Benning, his girlfriend, and first-degree murder for the unborn baby. So serious stuff over there. Interesting case, but I do think, just based on my statement analysis, there were a lot of indicators of guilt. Crazy case. Like when people do this stuff, when you're sitting around, it reminds me of a little bit. It's not exactly the same, but it reminds me of the, my God, what's her name? Taylor, what's her name? Why am I blanking? The Maternal Instinct movie girl. Taylor Parker. Because it's Blaze Taylor and then Taylor Parker. That's where my brain got a little bit like, wait, is that right? There is like, I know how narcissists think, right? And I know that everything is about manipulating to get their needs met. There is no actual self. So you're always positioning to try to like, well, what's this person going to do? And if I do this, then they'll do that. And then I can say this. And then I know I'll go to Facebook and I'll make it look like this. So I can see in both cases kind of what their thinking process was. But it's like, at some point, do you not stop and think, you know, this probably isn't a good idea. Like me, as you're purchasing the very large quantity of cocaine and you're like stirring it in your pregnant girlfriend's drink, are you not like, you know, maybe I shouldn't actually go through with this? Like, there's no part of you that's like, this is just a bad idea. You know what I mean? Like, the same thing with this other girl. Like, what? I mean, did you really think when the police pulled you over and you had the umbilical cord, just because you had an umbilical cord sticking out of your pants, that the cop wasn't, that they weren't going to figure it out, that wasn't your child, that you hadn't just had a baby and in fact had a hysterectomy? They say like criminals are not super smart, and apparently that is true, because like these are just that's why I didn't cover the maternal instinct case, you guys. I looked into it and it's just not that interesting. Like, she's a narcissist. She's crazy. I mean, what am I tell you? She's a narcissist. She's not interesting. She's just not that interesting. She's has very little empathy, probably a psychopath, born without empathy. Very, very, very extremely narcissistic, clinically. She's just not that interesting. And that's why I investigated it thoroughly to be able to cover it, and ultimately concluded she is just not that interesting. And there's just nothing interesting to add to that story. So I didn't cover it, but it's funny, right? Because it's like, what are these people thinking? Like, how stupid. Did you really think you're going to get away with poisoning your girlfriend with, a huge dose of cocaine? Like, what the? Oh, it's just so absurd. Let me get to a couple of these. I want to make sure I do not miss anybody. At Blanca B1210 sends $4.99. The judge gave it away when he said the person who signed Proctor's excuse note wasn't qualified to diagnose. That told me it was therapist. Who knows? I mean, we don't. It certainly wasn't a doctor, so it wasn't a PsyD. It wasn't a psychologist. Who knows who it was? I would love to see it. To be able to say, I don't know. And I don't know, was it a person in Florida? Was it a person at McLean? I would think that if you are Judge Gildea, that the person at McLean would be the more credible person, just because it's a hospital, or it's a hospital system that you're familiar with, people that you would trust. So it is interesting though. Yeah, it probably was just his counselor. That'd be my guess. It was probably just like his counselor in treatment, but I don't know. I don't know how long he was there for. Yeah, I don't know. It's not hard though. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. If he really was, this is the thing. If he really was in treatment, like truly at McLean or truly being treated in a place in Florida, it would be the easiest thing in the world to get the proper signatures, because from a medical perspective, if you are in treatment to the degree that you need to be in an inpatient unit in Florida, you really probably should be excused from a deposition, right? So I understand where Proctor was coming from, because if it was my patient, he was working with me, I would be very quick to want to sign off, because clearly he's not right. However, he's also Michael Proctor, so I'm a little conflicted in saying this. I don't want to put any ideas in anybody's heads, but it shouldn't have been hard to get the proper signature, because everyone should have signed off on it. It should have been easy. The fact that it wasn't makes me wonder if he wasn't there, honestly. Because it would have been easy, right? It's like a no-brainer. If you're in treatment, no, you should not be going to give a deposition in like the most stressful environment imaginable to you. Hi, Denise. Denise Cotta sends 10 pounds. I've had an odd feeling about Judge G since the beginning. Thank you for educating us. You are utterly beautiful and intelligent. Thanks, Denise. You're the best, from the UK. We love you dearly. I am trying to stay neutral about this judge, or I have been, because I don't want to start getting into that cycle of dread every time we go into one of these hearings. It just became so unbearable with Judge Bev, like unbearable. And I have to tell you, to all of you who were there in those early days from the motions before the first trial, I am so glad I wasn't, because I would have been beside myself. I mean, I could barely, the whole reason I started this YouTube channel was because the thought of going through the second trial alone again was unimaginable to me. I was like, no, I can't do this alone. Like, I won't make it. I will not make it. It was so stressful the first time. Thank God I had Melanie, and I would just listen to Melanie. At that time, I was doing like home improvement projects and just trying to stay moving, right, while listening to the trial every day. It was so stressful. It was absolutely horrible. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I don't want to develop an inherent anger towards this judge, but it's getting impossible now, because now he's kind of, right? I mean, listen, we may never know if at the end of the day this was just a screw up on the side of the court, on the side of the judge. We may never know, because would you tell us if it was? Probably not, right? But think about that. I mean, you make this colossal mistake, reprimand all of the attorneys, cost everybody thousands and thousands of dollars, threaten them up and down multiple times. Big threats too, by the way. Like, I'm going to threat to essentially make the decision myself which way this goes. I'm going to, threaten who gets deposed and who doesn't. I'm just going to take Michael Proctor out of this whole process. Think about that. Imagine that Michael Proctor does not get factored into this discussion for this case. The jury never learns about Michael Proctor. I mean, are you kidding? Think about how unfair that would be. So it's just, I'm trying not to start to do that inherently, like attach negative feelings to this judge, but it's like, it's becoming impossible. These cases, they just get you so emotional. It's just insane. Denise, yay, she gives 5 I Don't Belong Here memberships. Thank you so much, Denise. You are way too kind. And yay, congratulations to the people that get the new memberships. Please make sure and check out the member benefits. There's going to be a number of interesting and cool benefits coming up soon. I'm doing a lot of tweaking things behind the scenes right now, so it's exciting. It's very exciting. Welcome at Bethany Travis 6797. Welcome, Bethany Travis. At Andrea P 356 sends $5. Sam, yes, go back to Aiden's tweet. Someone could have changed the time and screenshot it. The judge doesn't fact check things himself. Right. So in other words, maybe a clerk made a mistake or looked at something and didn't do their due diligence to double, triple, quadruple check it. Yeah, I completely believe you. I will double check it at the break, which we're going to take here in just a moment. There was one more thing that I wanted to show you guys before the break. What was it? I can't remember now. No. Well, it's okay. I'll remember after on the other side. Yeah, we'll come back to it after. I will try to find that so we can take a look at what exactly Aiden said and why it might be important. I know Turtle Boy thinks that he may have been the reference that the judge was making. I do tend to agree with Melanie that he probably would have called him out by name if it was. But I also think that's different, right? Because he is a journalist. And I don't know. I think Aiden is different, but maybe, I don't know. We'll have to double check. I will double check. We are going to go into our fervent break, and it looks like, so with fervent, where did we get? We got down to the final 4, right? So I think the final 4, we're still at our final 4 in voting for the top fervent songs. And they are, so we have the David Yannetti song, that's left in the bracket. we have We Believe going up against F.U. Hank. And David Yannetti is going up against, what's the other one that's Yannetti is going up against? Why can't I remember? What's the song, you guys? What's the last one that Yannetti's going up against? I know we're down to 4, and I know somebody's got to remember it. Well, I'm going to play some of those songs right now, and when we come back, I will. And Denise is here. Denise, I hope that Bugsy is okay. Denise wasn't here, missed the beginning because her beautiful little bunny Bugsy had to go to the vet. So hopefully Bugsy is okay. And he's like the cutest bunny in the whole world. All right, so I am going to take a look at these different things. I promise I will look at it and try to remember who the other song is too for our final 4. If you haven't voted in the fervent bracket for best song, make sure that you do. And I am going to pull him up here for us now. I'm going to play one of my favorite songs, though, even though it's not didn't make the cut. I knew it wouldn't because I know that the Yannetti song is everybody's like fave. But I don't know why. I just love the the AJ song. I just like the hook so much. It has nothing to do with liking Alan Jackson or David Yannetti. I just like the hook. I can't get enough. The Brady List song. Okay, here we go. Here we go. And I will see you guys back here in just a few minutes.
I put you on a Brady list.
Hopefully you can hear that.
I'm gonna make you pay for this. Yeah, AJ's dangerous. Ooh, oh baby, I was born for this.
Yeah, I brought the West Coast to Dedham. Nobody is safe from my verbal venom. Put a witness on the stand and watch me shred 'em. Have 'em praying for peace, like the name John Lennon. A lawyer to match me? Well, I ain't met 'em. Don't believe me? Just ask Hank Brennan. Free can't read, and that was just the beginning. I'm never tired of winning. Got these middle-aged women waiting up to go swimming. Let's swim. I don't get nervous. I make people nervous. I don't get nervous. I make people nervous. I put you on a Brady list. I'm gonna make you pay for this. Oh, and AJ's dangerous. Ooh, I put you on a Brady list. Oh, sorry, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and KG. The real big threes, Yannetti, Bob, and me. Gonna come with the seat, don't try me. You should know by now I always come with receipts. I'm out here penning letters like my name better roll. You got problems, Cox, and I think they're federal. Attorney Corey Hopkins, sure let them know this ain't an episode, this a whole damn show. I don't get nervous, I make people nervous. I don't get nervous, I make people nervous. Ajax out here eliminating all you greasy motherfuckers. Ha ha ha. I'll put you on the Brady list. I'm gonna make you pay for this. Oh, yeah, AJ's dangerous. Ooh, I'll put you on a Brady list. Oh,
I've been biting my tongue for so long. Fuck you, Hank. Think you're better than me? Fuck you, Hank. You are not Lally. Fuck you, Hank. Think you're better than me? Fuck you, Hank. But why don't don't we see? I'm a basic kind of guy, I really don't need a flaunt. Smoking 6 packs a day and I'm happy as a hog. All I do is mumble, do I really need any lungs? The trial one jury was just like me, they were hung. Trial 2 came around and you wanna bench me? Not one guilty vote was embarrassing to see. Need to remind you that my jury was 9-3. Take your little OUI and get about the scene.
Fuck you, hey, hey.
Think you're better than me?
Fuck you, hey.
You are not lolly.
Fuck you, hey.
Think you're better than me?
Fuck you, hey.
Well, why don't we see?
Why don't you see?
Oh, I know what will get us the win. Ask French about his fucking ham sandwich again. That'll prove this beyond all reasonable doubt. Oh, who am I kidding? This shit is a rout.
It appears that I made a mistake.
You took this case so damn personally, and I hold that opinion to a scientific certainty. You weasel face, fuck bet, Arca Major P. Even with all the help you got from Beverly, standing ovation. What a robust cross. Psych.
Your nerdy ass looks so fucking lost.
Just think,
$500,000
was all it cost to get our asses kicked in the fucking law. Think you're better than me?
Fuck you, hey.
You are not lolly.
Fuck you, Hank.
Think you're better than me?
Fuck you, hey.
Well, why don't we see?
Why don't we see?
Hey! Waiting for your response, Banky. Yeah.
Did I mention my jury was also hung?
Davey and Eddie, yeah, you know my style. The only member of the team to make Bev smile. If your eyes are bad, I will offer you my readers, but they ain't gonna help when I impeach ya. I'm the reigning hot Mike's sexiest man. All these women in the street, yeah, they know who I am. They see my dimples from a mile away. When they pass me, they scream, Karen Reed was framed. That's right, oh yeah. Beverly said no more, of course. That's right, oh yeah. So my natural response was to say, of course. Come on. Michael Proctor said he truly hates me. I got a question, Proctor, how's life treating you lately? They say everybody loves you, Nettie, but if you ask me, my heart belongs to Baba Leslie. That's right, oh yeah. They say Karen committed the crime. That's wrong, oh no. To quote myself, we now know that was a lie. Come on. Office in Salem, Dedham, and Boston. Something in Norfolk County is rotten. Morrissey had me saying that is outrageous. A new DA might be what could save
Called you up into my office. Got you flowers and some chocolate.
I was gonna play the fourth one,
I don't really
but it
do
didn't
the
play for some
talking,
reason. Let's see.
But I think we need some talking.
That's not the fourth one.
First off, is it devil or deep?
Let me see if I can find it really quick here. There it is. Proctor Defender.
Life of a Proctor Defender. Send some text that might offend.
This is the song going up
Lose your
against
gun,
Yannetti.
out on a bender. That's the life of a Proctor Defender. That's the life of a Proctor Defender. That's the life of a Proctor Defender. I don't even know why this is in the news. All of y'all are acting like prudes. Who doesn't like looking at nudes and sharing those nudes with the whole damn crew? Don't come at me with quid pro quo. I love that man, no homo. Not one text that he planted evidence. That means that it is so evident there's no corruption. So what's the relevance? The feds found nothing except for these messages. They say there was a conflict of interest, but really we all had a common interest. Frame Karen Reed and we're in the clear. Then work with Kev on a cold case of beer. The life of a Proctor Defender. Send some text that might offend you. Lose your gun while you're out on a bender. That's the life of a Proctor Defender. That's the life of a
I've been
Proctor
thinking about
Defender.
this actually.
That's the life of
This is a very cute song. What are the girls over on the other team? What is it that they are saying about these Sean Goode texts? How do you defend these, right? I have no idea. You don't have to answer that question, by the way. It's kind of rhetorical. I'm curious. How do you defend these? Now, I'm guessing, knowing what I know, what they've done in the past, that the defense is going to be, well, these were personal and private, and therefore shouldn't have been ascertained to begin with. But the problem with that argument is that if you are somebody who's supposed to be serving the public, you are a public servant, obviously the public has a vested interest. If you are planning on not going to a scene of a crime to act and do your job as a person who's supposed to protect the public because of their nationality, because of their race, because of their gender, because of their sexuality, whatever, etc. So that is a voided argument very quickly. I just can't imagine. If you're defending Michael Proctor and Sean Goode, I don't know what the argument is. I can't even begin to imagine. And so I have to believe they're not actually arguing in their defense. But here's what I will say. And I'm not saying that I know this for sure. It probably shouldn't even be bringing it up. But it is what it is. Like I am certain that plenty of people that are directly involved with this case have racist beliefs. Right? Like, I don't know, the people in the house at 34 Fairview, I don't have to know much about that group to say, I'm sure that some of the language in here is acceptable to the majority of the folks in that household. I'll leave it at that. But I would put my money on it. If I was a betting person, that's where I'd put my money. Comfortably. And I'm not a betting person, because I like money and I don't like giving it away for nothing. However, I think this one would be a pretty safe bet. So while they all have to say whatever they have to say publicly, my guess is the majority of the folks in the house on the night when John died have very little problem with the sentiment that we are seeing from Sean Goode and Michael Proctor. And I can't wait to find out, who are the party boys? Like, are we going to get to learn that eventually? Do we get to know who are the party boys, the people in this group text message or WhatsApp message thread? I can't remember with Sean Goode if it's WhatsApp, or I think it's WhatsApp mostly. Would love to know who these guys are, though. Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable. So I did go ahead and find the Aiden Carney X posts. So let's pull that up here. This should be ready to roll, I think. Okay. So you should be looking at it. Let me see here. Nope. Yep. It may have moved backwards. Okay. Yep, it went backwards. So I have to move all the way back with it. So we're going to go back to June 8th. I might be frozen for a second, FYI, because I am on the X page. This is June 12th. We are looking right now for the post that Aiden did post on June 8th in relationship, here it is, to Michael Proctor. So here is June 8th at 10:56 a.m. He says, great reporting by Towel News Network. And that, of course, is Grant Smith Ellis. And just before this one, we have another post. Michael Proctor decided to have a mental health crisis after the whole world found out how racist he is. This is at 10:52 a.m. This is the post, in fact, that we are talking about. Sources tell us he checked himself into a mental health facility in Florida to try to avoid today's deposition. They filed a motion at the last minute on Friday to delay the depo, but the judge wanted proof. They submitted an affidavit that was impounded because it likely said Proctor was in a mental hospital. Karen Reed's lawyers made the mistake of saying the scheduling of the deposition was strategic, which the judge took issue with based on her comments on the Today Show. That happened, though. Those are things that happened in open court. He stayed the depo for 24 hours, and at 4:15, a hearing will be held. My guess is he's going to tell Proctor to jump on a plane and stop being such a pussy so Alan can depose him tomorrow. This is the 10:52 a.m. June 8th post by Turtle Boy. So there you go. Again, I mean, I guess there is medical information in there. But the judge, it appears, specifically referenced his specific. So the judge basically said, I got an email. That email had very specific medical information on it, in the form of some type of document with signatures. I'm assuming, said where he was, what the diagnosis is, how long he's supposed to be there for, whatever. Had medical professionals or mental health professionals of some kind signing off on it. And the way the judge framed it, that is what a half hour later was being posted on X. So, and then, and I'll pull up Corey Hopkins' tweet again. Corey writes, I'm 99% sure that the judge mixed up Doc 112. So that would have been the document, that's the number of the document from the hearing that we did not see. It was not made public, with Doc 116, which was filed publicly at 2:22 and then posted at 2:52 this whole time. So we don't know. I mean, this is absolutely a guess, obviously, right? We have no choice. We have to guess because the judge did not come with receipts. And, that's a whole nother conversation. But I agree with you. I'm seeing a lot of the comments in the chat. And I totally agree, right? This idea that he's saying that social media is hindering justice at Java Monster 922. It's just absurd. It's just absurd. Hindering justice, but also with a very specific intent, right? Because he's actually saying the lawyers are specifically leaking information with the intent of manipulating the public sentiment, the narrative, right? Which is why I said this is starting to feel like the same not propaganda material that we hear from the McCabe versus Karen and Aiden defamation suit, where it's the same garbage about a narrative and a clear intent to sway public opinion with a good story, basically. It just doesn't even make sense, though, in this case, because in this very specific instance, with Michael Proctor and this medical information, it doesn't even benefit anybody to leak it. It's not beneficial for the defense, for Karen to leak this medical information. It might even be the opposite of beneficial, right? Because there might be people in the world who sympathize with him because of his mental health crisis. So I don't see any benefit to Karen and her team, who it appears as though the judge, although he's sort of trying to be diplomatic, he's not pointing the fingers at anybody. He's publicly tried to, I guess, like I said, be diplomatic, be fair in his assumptions about which side is doing what and using social media to their advantage. However, these judges, none of them, they do not like the fancy LA lawyer coming in and bringing all of this attention with him. Just like he called out Alan Jackson for free publicity. I don't know what that was really a reference to or what he meant, but it's sort of par for the course now, right? It's just very clear that these judges do not like all the attention on them. And to me, it's exactly the way it should be. It's the way it should have always been. Everybody should have more of an interest in the judicial process, right? I mean, I don't know. These guys, these men and women of the cloth, the cloth, maybe not the right cloth. That's like a different reference. But these judges, they just have too much power, and they've been getting away with making decisions in a vacuum for a very long time. They don't like all of us with our opinions, intervening in any way in the process. And I hate the ignorance. I resent the implication, the idea that we're just out there chasing stories for attention. It's just not what's going on in this case. That may be true in lots of other situations. It's not true in this case. In this case, this is just about justice. And it's easy to get distracted, right? Because there's all these threads. You guys know, we talked about this endlessly. When I was going through the Innocence series, it was very easy to get off track. Oh, I'm going to go look at the taillight, or I'm going to go look at ARCA, or I'm going to go look at this aspect of this case. I'm going to go look at this aspect. But that's exactly how and why it took me personally 2 years to get to the 10 minutes that surrounded Karen and John pulling up in front of 34 Fairview, because you go to look at it and then you get distracted with something else that's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's very difficult to just stay focused on this one obtuse piece of this case when there's all this other information that competes with it. And we see that right now, right? But this is a monster of a case. It has tentacles that have their own tentacles for days, forever. And you have all of us incredibly committed to seeing it through because we care about justice. That's it. It's very frustrating. You guys know, it's very upsetting. It's just very upsetting. At Mr. G, 70 cents, $5. Is the judge using this error as a way to blame social media as a problem of fairness, so he can come back to blame it again on some other ruling? I was just thinking that, or to eventually institute a gag order of some kind, or to eventually, give Proctor an out. All possible. Right. All possible. I hope not, because let's be honest, this is the judge that Karen has to deal with for how many of these cases? I mean, all of them. And it's my understanding that he could end up being the judge for the federal case too. Now that's in a different county, right? Bristol County, I think. So would it surprise anybody though? I mean, wasn't that other filing in a different county too? Wasn't the whole point that the House defendants brought Brian Higgins into the lawsuit was to get it out into the Cape Cod area so that it could be in a different county, and that didn't work. Judge Gildea got that case too. So I'm not sure how it works with judges, if it's a federal case versus a state case, but I don't want to think poorly about this judge because he's on every single one of these cases, which, by the way, it seems like I understand why, but it does seem like, for obvious reasons, it's not a great idea. Maybe we need to go do more investigating into this judge to find out, like, what is his record? What has he ruled on in the past? I'm sure some of you have done that. I haven't done it yet, but it might be an important thing to do, because you're right, Mr. G70. Could be 100%. Of course. At Your Dad's Favorite Mom sends $9.99. What would be the point to leaking Proctor's medical info? His texts are bad enough, right? We don't care his medical business. Nobody does, no. Which is only a topic to begin with because he tried to get out of his depot. I am with you 100%. And it's not really news. Like, I mean, immediately when I heard his lawyer talking about getting out of the depot, my first thought was, oh, he's probably back in a mental institution again. I mean, it was like, it's not surprising. It's not a secret. All of us are savvy to this. And that's what I mean. Like, we have been on this case for a long, long time, that way before most of these lawyers and judges. So my first thought when I heard the judge was calling this hearing, and I had texted some of you guys about this already, my first thought was, oh, we probably just somebody guessed correctly. And it looks like it was a disclosure. Now, it doesn't appear like that's what happened per se, but I'm still not even convinced there was a disclosure. I am still not convinced. I don't know. I think it could have been a mistake. I really do. Because I just don't think there was a disclosure. I don't see it. And I'm with you 100%. Your Dad's Favorite Mom. I'm with you 100%. And did I read this? No. Janai W79 says, now he's talking about the Constitution, but doesn't understand free press and free speech. I know. It's insane. Right? It's insane. And it does remind me, and Melanie mentioned this, it does remind me a little bit of Morrissey's hostage speech, which was like, we try cases in a courtroom and not on the internet, because the internet doesn't have rules of evidence. This had a similar feeling. That's also why I wanted to know if he was the one that wrote it, because if he wrote it, then it would give us insight into what he really thinks to do an analysis of it. If he didn't, then it's a moot point. But I do think, from what I can tell, that it's the fact that it was Michael Proctor and it was a situation with somebody who did have his life destroyed by these text messages that caused the judge to overreact. That's my sense. Had this been, and by the way, and here's something else that's really important just to say, and I'm going to pull this up here too, because I keep almost forgetting to mention it. And that's another thing that we're not doing because we're talking about this nonsense. What are we not talking about? We're not talking about this piece here. I think this is it. Yeah, I think this is it. We are not talking about the fact that all of these people are trying to get out of their depositions. And they're doing it in the same way. There is very much so a clear pattern here of behavior where these people are trying to get out of sitting for their depositions. And we look at the behavior, this came up because Karen's team was pointing out that Brian Tully just essentially did exactly the same thing that all the House defendant people did to get out of having to sit for his. And why wouldn't he? Because the rest of these people did it. So sure, why not join the club? So this says on May 20th, 2026, Colin Albert informed Reed that he would be indefinitely unavailable for deposition after June 2nd and continued to refuse to produce nearly all documents Reed sought. On May 20th, Tully, through his counsel, agreed to a July 8th deposition, which was moved at his counsel's request. On June 1st, Brian Albert served objections to producing documents well after the deadline to object had passed, and the next day claimed to be unavailable for multiple weeks that followed his subpoena date. On June 1st, Nicole Albert served objections to producing documents well after the deadline to object had passed, and the next day claimed to be unavailable for multiple weeks that followed her subpoena date. You can guess what I'm about to say next. On June 1st, Jennifer McCabe served objections to producing documents well after the deadline to object had passed, and the next day claimed to be unavailable for multiple weeks that followed her subpoena date. On June 1st, Matt McCabe served objections to producing documents well after the deadline to object had passed, and the next day claimed to be unavailable for multiple weeks that followed his subpoena date. On June 1st, Allie McCabe served objections to producing documents well after the deadline to object had passed, and the next day stated that she was unavailable for her chosen deposition date. It then says, however, she later agreed to appear on such date with only 2 days' notice, and then testified that, in fact, she never had concrete plans requiring her to be away on the date of her deposition. So she wasn't really unavailable, is what this says. That's great. On June 5th, third-party witness Michael Proctor filed his emergency motion for protective order. So on June 16th, Julie Albert failed to appear for her properly subpoenaed and notice deposition. It just goes on and on and on. And again, these are the people that are supposed to be, innocent victims in all of this, right? Have you ever seen innocent people behave like this ever in your whole life? Like, it's baffling. It's baffling. Absolutely baffling. I love how these people, they want so desperately for us to see them as innocent witnesses and snowflakes, right? Like, what do you mean? And at every turn, they obfuscate justice. At every turn. Every single turn. It's awe-inspiring, right? It's just like the phones. Oh, there's a protection order. Oh, okay. Well, that's coming down on Tuesday. Okay. It's Monday at, 11:30 p.m. Oh, hey, Bri, give me your phone and I'll take it to the military base and we can have a little party and throw all the pieces all over the base in different dumpsters. It's just insulting is what it is. Just insulting. At Claire Lee's 6718, he's blaming the lawyers with no proof at all. How does he know who leaked anything? Exactly. Yeah, he doesn't. Exactly. And that's what I think I think he's just making a point, really. Like he's punishing them preemptively. That's what I think has happened here. Like he jumped knee jerk because he was waiting for this to happen, waiting for something to get leaked, assuming that because of the stature of the case that, the big attorneys are going to be playing strategy and leaking stuff, and to get out in front of it, he made a point at the cost of the individuals involved, in this case, Karen, mostly because her attorneys are expensive and they come in from, all over the place. So he doesn't know anything. And I don't even know that he believes entirely that there was a leak, but this is to make a point. I mean, I think that's really what this comes down to. I think he's trying to make a point, set some kind of precedent, and make a threat. And he made 3 very clear threats to everyone in that room. And like I said, I think that we are somehow kind of included as an extension to that. At Twigs the Gemini sends $5. Super happy you looked at Blaze Taylor. They give recommendations on sentencing. Did they give recommendations? Okay, so that's what they did. They gave recommendations on sentencing. Yeah, it's like, could you imagine? I felt so bad for that jury because I'm like, man, you guys spent 2 hours coming to a decision, which was hard enough, right? Especially on a murder case, and then there's a baby involved, the whole thing. What a disaster. Then it's like, all right, guys, go back out. Well, actually, no. First, they have to sit and listen to, they go through a full sentencing hearing, right? I saw there was, friends and family of Jade Benning that were coming and speaking to the jury. So it's like, that's crazy that it all happens immediately like that. That's a lot of intensity. Yeah, very, very interesting case though. And I was glad I looked into it too. And then I did some more looking today. I didn't even know that the jury was, that we were on verdict watch. I didn't realize we were on verdict watch. And I went back and I looked at the second body cam interview with a police officer and did some additional analysis. There's some pretty big disclosures in there. One that I missed from the first analysis, and then another from the second body cam that I definitely want to take a look at. It's it's an interesting case for sure. But in my opinion, there's enough indicators to say that they probably made the right decision. They really did. At Retire Yesterday, 411 sends $10. Will we be able to find out what AJ does now? Basically asking the judge, what the hell are you referring to, and prove we did it. It's a small town. Everyone knows about Michael Proctor. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. They probably nothing, right? I mean, because you're kind of stuck here. If you keep pushing it, then the judge is going to turn around and punish you. And I think that's this fine line that, I guess it's an easier line to walk during the civil case than it would be in the criminal case. But this is the problem with judges. Look at how much power they have. This guy is basically saying, well, if you keep doing shit like this, that you're not even doing, by the way, like if you keep leaking information to the public, pandering to social media, which they're not even doing, then I can make the decision on this case myself. I'll just call it. I'll just say, yep, the plaintiff wins, and then we'll go right into damages. I mean, that is almost a direct quote. And then he even came equipped with like case law to be able to say, oh, you don't believe me? Well, here are the cases that support my power. And honestly, I don't even think this ethical law rule that he cited, I don't even know that, in my opinion, and I'm certainly obviously not a legal scholar of any kind, I don't even know that it applied here, because this wasn't information that was going to help one side or another. Like, it didn't help Karen, Very strange. So it was medical information. So that's that falls into like a different category of disclosure in my mind. Right? I don't know. I just don't know how that helped anybody. I guess from the judge's perspective, it just like makes us happy. Like it's like feeding information to the wolves kind of a thing, like throwing us a bone, because that's the way he kind of sees all of us. But it just misses the point. You know what I mean? It just misses the point. It really does. It's just absurd. And Mr. G70 sends $2. He couldn't get out fast enough. I know he couldn't get out fast enough. I mean, he like practically ran out. Yeah, I mean, and look at the room he had in front of him. Of course he ran out. Like, would you want to have to actually listen to argument from any of those people in the room? There were so many attorneys. They were like sitting in like where the jury box is. There was, 4 people just in Alan Jackson's law firm on Zoom. That was nuts. What a crazy scene. So yeah, I understand why he ran out. Of course he ran out, but it's just crazy. This is insane, you guys. Like, we're still it's insane to me that this is just the first of what could be many, and we're still doing this. Like, we're still doing this. And why are we doing this in this particular case? Oh, because Ms. O'Keefe and Paul had a feeling because Karen was acting weird. They knew before the investigators even got there. Before they spoke to any investigators, Paul and Ms. O'Keefe, they knew Mrs. O'Keefe because they had a feeling. So it's so unimaginable. And remember the argument, remember, not for nothing, I hate even bringing this up, but remember the argument that Diller stood up and made day one with this case, which was like a year ago now. That was like last August. He stood up and he made the argument that Karen was intentionally trying to inflict emotional harm on John's niece, because that makes a ton of sense. Because there's while Karen Reed is in the car praying with Carrie and Jen, all she can think about is these kids. Oh, that's the only thing on her mind is, oh my God, who's going to take care of these kids? You guys promised they're going to be taken care of. That's what's on it. That's what's on her mind. And this family has the audacity to suggest that Karen was intentionally trying to inflict emotional harm on one of John O'Keefe's adopted children. It's just fundamentally absurd in every way, shape, and form. What do you even say? And I try not to get into the family stuff too much because it just makes me angry, and why bother? There's not much you can do. I mean, if somebody has a feeling and that's what they're basing their decision on, we're already in the twilight zone. So nothing that happens next is going to be useful, right? Because that's what they were sure because of their feeling day one, period. So they knew Karen did this. Hi at Kid Pack sends $1.99. Hello, nice to see you. I always appreciate that photo. Twigs the Gemini sends $20. Says judges' power isn't the problem per se. They should be required to attend other judges' trials a few times per year so they can observe justice as a spectator. It's true. A judge being unable to view cases through the lens of law causes problems. A judge being unable to view cases through the lens of the law causes problems. Yeah, and I hate to bring there is something to be said for the years of practice and experience, of course, right? This is an older gentleman. He's got, God only knows how many years working in law and how much that a person has seen at that point in their career. And I do have tremendous amount of respect for that because I get that, right? I know what it was like to be a wee little lad in my own career and what it's like now. And I'm sure another 20 years down the road, what it would be like then. But I also understand that there's this huge disconnect in understanding about what social media, what that actually means, right? And what it is that we are really doing when we are watching these live trials. To me, it's bringing the average person into our legal process. I would never, 3 years ago, had no knowledge of law, knew nothing about the legal process, really nothing. Maybe an embarrassing lack of understanding or knowledge because I never needed to, I never had to, luckily for me. But that's not, I don't want to be ignorant about that. That is something that we should all have a basic understanding and a baseline level of knowledge and understanding of. It's a beautiful thing that people have an interest and are really paying attention. Think about it as if you get called for jury duty. I've had clients that were recently telling me about their experience in jury duty and how wonderful it was because everyone took it so seriously, and it wasn't a murder case or anything like that, but everyone took that responsibility of being a juror as seriously as you can. And I do think that that's what we, for the most part, see. So there's a lot of really positive aspects of having all of the eyes on, cases like this. But it's very clear also, Twigs, that they do not like it. These judges do not like it. They don't like it. They feel like it's a spectacle. It's making a spectacle out of the situation. That's what bothers me. It's ignorance. It's like, lumping us all into like Instagram. Like, okay, you'll understand. It makes me think social media, I think Mackenzie Shirilla, right? Like for the average older person, you think about social media and it brings up images of like Mackenzie Shirilla, like some, really ignorant 20-year-old kid who's like, making kissy faces at themselves in every photo that they post. You're not thinking about, intelligent people having real discussions about real things. And I think that's what this judge is kind of likening what we're doing too. He's more along the lines of what you would imagine with the kissy face Mackenzie Shirilla than what we're doing. And that, that's frustrating because I don't think that's a fair or accurate assessment of things at all. And you're right. Of course they should, right? Of course they should have to have a sense of what else is going on and what other people are doing in their cohort. I don't know. Massachusetts is so screwed up too. Like that, it's just such a screwed up state. I don't know why. I don't know why Massachusetts cannot get it together. It is just so screwed up. It's like annoying, like enough already with Massachusetts, like enough. At KidPack sends $9.99. Hey, Sam, just catching up. So sorry if this is out of order. Can you imagine what Proctor thinks now, known he wasn't on the on-call list? That's a great point, right? Like he wasn't on the on-call list and somebody calls him in. Like you're the most unlucky dude on the planet that you got called in on this case. And you know what's interesting about that, KidPack? At the time, there was so much like pride around it for him. There really was. I mean, you could see it in those early texts. Recently, I went back through some of them, the Proctor texts from the first 16 hours when he's, talking to his kindergarten pals. Those texts to me have always said it all. Always. They've always given pretty much this whole case away. That's the text message exchange where he's saying his friends are like, what's the name of the homeowner? And he keeps ignoring it. And then eventually he's like, oh no, he's a Boston cop, too. He's not going to catch any shit. But the girl she's fucked, right? That whole thing. It just clearly gives it all away. All the powers that be want answers ASAP. Just gives you a sense that like Proctor felt it was his job to, nail down this investigation, nail it such that Karen Reed was guilty, that it was a slam dunk and in their eyes. And now it was his job to lock it down. How stupid. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, it's quite clear they must have done stuff like this countless times before, because nobody obviously ever considered for a single moment that we would all be looking at it. And think about this. You remember when Melanie found the Justin Root chain of custody report, the evidence that it's one of my favorite Melanie episodes of all time because she's just floored. Like she's talking and it's like Yuri Buchanan and he's like labeling pants and like a shell casing for like a bullet, like every little tiny piece of evidence that like they have ever touched in relationship to this case is so carefully documented, and where they got it and who logged it in and how much of it there was, and the whole thing. I mean, you've never seen a more clear-cut chain of custody report in your entire life. Just clear. And then during this case, which was so clearly after that case, right? Like not even a year later, they're like, no, I've never heard of a chain of custody report. I don't even know what that is, right? They're all acting. I mean, it was just, so unbelievable. They didn't, at least in the Justin Root case, which was also, I guess, the death of a police officer too, they knew enough to make sure and cover their bases. But on this, think about that. They didn't even bother to create a chain of custody report for the evidence anywhere. So they clearly just assumed they were in the clear. They were going to get away with this. There was never going to be anybody to come back and look at any of it with a side eye ever. And for a long time, there wasn't. I mean, it's so blatantly corrupt. When you go back and you look at that chain of custody report that Melanie found, it's by itself, to me, one of the most incriminating pieces of evidence, period, in the corruption side of the Karen Read case, because of how clear that chain of evidence report is. I mean, it is, and they're all on it. That's the other thing. Fanning, Proctor, Buchanan, every single one. Did she go? Every name, Tully, they're all there. What do you say to that, right? What do you even say to that? How do you defend that? What's the rebuttal to that? I thought you didn't know what a chain of custody report was. Well, but you knew what it was then. So unimaginable. Hello, Mark, dear Mark. How are you? Member for 7 months. Happy 7 months, Mark. Hey, you, is this the Taylor Swift hotline? I want 4 seats for Madison. I'm assuming that was Madison Square Garden, please. Just mention my name. How about the fact that Taylor Swift is getting married at Madison Square Garden? Isn't that weird? Do you think that's a weird place to have your wedding? And they're talking about security and locking it down. Now, if you don't know where Madison Square Garden is, it literally is a structure that not only sits in the middle of Manhattan, it's literally 20 blocks from my front door. But it sits on top of one of the busiest train stations in the world. You can't shut that down, right? I mean, it sits on top of Penn Station, literally, because Penn Station is underground. So Madison Square Garden is this, round structure sitting on top of Penn Station. And they're like, oh, we're going to have it locked down. It's not even possible to have it locked down. What are you talking about? It's impossible. It cannot happen. So I just think it's like, why do that? Why even do that to yourself? It's just, I don't get it. I do not get it. I do not get it. I do not get it. And I will say, and I apologize for all the Swifties in the house, because I have nothing personal against Taylor Swift. But when I did read the text messages between her and Blake Lively, they did a little bit rub me the wrong way. I'll just say that. But I have, I don't know her music enough to say I like it or don't like it. I just think it's funny that they're deciding to get married at the Madison Square Garden. Like, why would you do that? Just makes for such a headache. At KBella 25 cents 4.99. Sounds like the depot refusals are what we should exactly. Can I just tell you that's exactly what I feel like we should be focusing on too. And instead, we're focusing on more Michael Proctor garbage. So I do feel like yeah, it's it's a smokescreen. I do. My super chat didn't get read last time about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Oh, I hate when I do that. I'm so sorry if I missed your super chat. What did you say? Can you tell me what you said about the Dunning-Kruger effect now? um, yes, I very much want to know what you were talking about. And I hate when I do that. I'm so sorry if I didn't read it. Sometimes I'll bring it up and then I forget to read it, but I think I read it, and I hate that. I feel terrible when that happens. But I'm very curious about what you were referencing there. But you're right, Bella. You're absolutely right. We absolutely should be focusing on the depots, because guess what's going to happen now? So we are at July 1st, right? Is that today, July 1st? So we're in July, and this is supposed to be wrapped up by, what was it, like August 19th? So what does that mean? How many depositions are still left to be had in this case? It's insane. It's just insane. Insane. And at least, by the way, they did get some with Proctor. I know it's probably nowhere near enough, but they did get at least a little bit of Michael Proctor done, which is good. At Bella Brat for you sends $2. What if Proctor other phone has convos with judges? Yeah, I mean, I've seen other people mention that too. Could be. I don't know if I see Michael Proctor having convos with judges. I just don't think he's at that level of sophistication. Maybe about judges, right? Like about people that are on the inside. Like we did see in Sean Goode's messages that he was talking about Proctor and actually mentions whatever mental institution that Proctor was in. I had Goode's messages to pull up and read. I had to try to, you have to try to X some of it out, because I know people are getting banned because of the messages themselves. But I think we've also all heard most of them at this point. And they're just, he's just horrible. What what I thought was the most interesting thing, and I know this is a little bit of a side note, but one of the most interesting messages in the Sean Goode messages, there is something in there about resenting being considered a racist. And I'd have to go back and find it to show you exactly what it says, but it's something to the effect of like how much he resents that people, like something to the effect of he resents being called a racist. And it's so curious, because it's like, do you just have no self-awareness? Are you just like completely brain dead and just no sense of like reality testing at all? Like, how do you even argue that based on like I don't know. The George Floyd thing, I mean, that was literally made me physically sick. When he says too soon, it's like, you're a police officer, for God's sake. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? These guys just have too much time on their hands. Is this just how your parents spoke around you? Is this, a Canton thing? Is it's just a Massachusetts thing? Is this a Boston thing? Like, I know it's not a Western Massachusetts thing, because that's where I grew up. Yes, there's some of that, but not like this. I mean, not like this. These are police officers. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive. I don't know. And then listen, I did have arguments with some people who were trying to argue, and I mentioned this earlier, that this is just the way guys talk. So I would love to know, is that what you think? Do you think this is just the way men talk to each other? So I was a child of the 90s. I had friends that used some of these male friends, some of whom used some of the words that I've heard Sean Goode use. But this sentiment, I mean, I, to me, it's just evidence of being like rotten to your core. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't. I just don't know any men who speak like this routinely with each other. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being naive. But do I think, however, this group of men talk this way? Yes. Do I think there are more of them in and around the law enforcement community in Canton, Massachusetts? Absolutely. Like, remember the two guys? So the two guys that were above Proctor. So not Proctor, Tully. The two colonels that were above Tully, who the one guy in particular who just kept asking over and over, well, did it have any effect on the investigation? That was like his big go-to rebuttal. And then he retired very soon thereafter. You know, these guys didn't blink an eye. They did not blink an eye. They didn't fire Goode. You're going to tell me that you don't have grounds to fire this guy 2 seconds after you saw the first 5 text messages? What union could possibly defend this? They intentionally allowed this guy to retire like they did with, probably hundreds of other cops in the area, when they could have fired him immediately. They let him have a paid 8 months of vacation. 8 months paid. He just got to hang out at home and probably text more of his buddies. Like, it's just disgusting. To me, it's disgusting. It is a cop-out. It is absurd to say, oh, we were in the process. He beat us to it. Oh, it takes you 8 months to figure out this guy is a disgraceful, disgusting, dangerous bigot. You could have fired him 2 minutes into this internal affairs investigation. 2 minutes. Seconds in, the first drop of text. There was plenty of evidence worthy of firing him, but no, they want to make sure that he gets whatever pension he's entitled because of his years of serving the public good, while he's, talking about some of the worst stuff that he says, is about people losing their children and Goode, they deserved it. I mean, just like, he's just a horrible guy. Just period. Horrible man. Horrible. And his wife is a kindergarten teacher. His wife is a kindergarten teacher. And he's talking about, on his Apple TV, porn images of children popping up on the TV. It's sorry, it just gets me so upset. It's like, is this really happening? Are we really doing this? Is this a conversation that we even have to have, right? And it does take away from the depositions, from the discussion about these people trying to get out of sitting for their depots. At Twigs the Gemini sends $5. I'd love to explain the situation with TN versus Taylor. I used to work that courtroom. Yeah. I happened to see the case and recognized, really? That is so interesting. Yeah. But you got to tell me more. You got to give me more there. I would love to hear more about that. Very interesting, especially when you know the players that are involved, because you have so much more depth of knowledge and context, and it really does bring the whole thing to life in a very different way. In fact, a friend of mine, this is funny, this is completely side note, a friend of mine went to high school with Steve Sharilla. Like, what? I was like, wait, that's just how weird. What a small world, right? But it does just brings things to life in a different way. At balancing debits and credits, high balancing debits and credits sends $20. But the judge also threatened to dismiss the case. You are right. Still holding on to hope that he sees their shenanigans. I know. I haven't, like I said, I haven't fully turned on this judge yet. You're right. He was sort of equal opportunity threatening to a degree. You're right. You're right. And he's tried. I mean, I see that he's tried the very, I guess, the dark thought in my head is that he's just making it seem fair in order to, like, on the surface make it seem fair, but really he's just out to get Karen. But I mean, that's not fair. He's not, there's no reason for me to say that other than he's apologizing and telling us we need to treat Michael Proctor fairly, which seems like just insane. But he is a judge. I get it. And you're not wrong. He did threaten to dismiss the case. He did. Could you imagine? Boy, that would be a story, right? Could you imagine? But you know what? Would you put it past Dillard to be leaking information and trying to make it look like it came from Karen Reed's team? I mean, this guy is like unscrupulous to the extreme. I don't put anything past him. Like, he's just, yeah, gross, really. At NOLA CPA since 1999, the judge thinks the leak came from a tweet within 30 minutes of the request of the impound. It was already reported before an impound ever was requested 2 days prior. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Which is why I don't think it was Aiden, because it was already reported 2 days prior. So it would have had to have been something that came in that 30 minutes. Like, his whole point was whatever he saw in that time made it so quickly into the public sphere that it had to have come from that exchange of documents. That's the way he made it sound. The problem is he didn't provide a shred of evidence in support of this claim. So we have no idea and we're left to guess. That's why I tend to lean on what Corey Hopkins is saying as closer to probably the truth than anything else, because the one tweet that we do have that is exactly 30 minutes from the 2:22 time is that one from Grant Smith Ellis, and it is it's the motion to impound. So it's very possible that it was like a crossing up of the wires kind of a thing. I wouldn't be shocked, but we don't know. We just don't know. And we're probably never going to know, right? I mean, I don't know how we would. And like I said, I keep saying it, but I mean it. If this was a real leak, I have to believe that we would have seen it. Like, we would have seen the leak. We would have seen the document. We would have known about it immediately on June 8th. And we didn't. At eroy94 sends $20. Today, Gildea said all people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice. Ironic, seeing that leaked info was regarding a person who abused the power they held within the justice system regularly. Amen. Exactly. And I think that was what incensed so many of us. How could you possibly make that statement? But that is what he was saying. And I do think that part of why he was saying it is for that reason exactly. Like, he was kind of holding his breath, waiting for, okay, remember how he got so offended or irritated with Karen because they went on their little tour on NBC to do the morning show to talk about the lawsuit that was dropping. He didn't like that. He, called it out, made a big deal of it. So I think that part of why he was so quick to try to nip this in the bud was because it was Proctor. Like there is this sense of, well, it's okay to do because he's such a horrible human being. I think that's kind of like what he was doing. He's almost like, I don't know, overcompensating a bit because Michael Proctor is public enemy number one right now, which sounds a little bit crazy, but I do think that's kind of what was happening here. And that's why he was like so quick to jump on it and try to stop it. Which doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's crazy, but I think that is what happened. At Betsy Starry sends $9.99. Love you, Sam. This is off topic, but remember the high tops on the island pic? No way that was Brian Jr.'s feet. Yes, he's 6'5", and those shoes are tiny. My husband is the same height, and his feet are huge. You are right. Yes. Definitely not Brian Jr. We have no idea who that is. It could be anybody. It's hard to say, like, who would be wearing. So just from what I know about Colin, I mean, this is a complete guess. I would think that Colin Albert is the kind of kid that cares about sneakers. You know how there are people like kids that care about sneakers? For some, particularly men, usually, like sneakers are kind of like makeup to women or like hairstyles. That's like their thing. And they like want to have a bunch of sneakers that are clean and nice and new and in style and in trend. I want to guess that Colin would have had like not beat up Converse, but actually like nice, clean, new, like Jordans or something. So I don't think it would have been Colin. Who does that leave? Julie Nagel? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it could be anybody. Again, I am not fully convinced that those three mysterious girls that have connections to the Canton, town committee board, whatever. I'm not convinced that those three girls were not in the house when all this happened. So it could have feasibly been anybody, right? Could have been. Could it have been? Yeah, could have been. Could have been Sarah. Could have been Julie. Doubt it was Sarah. Maybe we could figure it out by process of elimination, but it really could have been a female or a male based on the way that those jeans are kind of like tight on the bottom. It just could have been anybody. Like I can bring it up. I think I have it right here. Let's see. Let me see if I have it right here. Converse. I know that I kept that like special somewhere, but it's been a while now since I've looked at it. Let's see. Yeah, I don't disagree with you though that he was huge. I mean, you know what's interesting about that? I somehow missed it for a very long time. Like I kind of found out somewhat recently that he was 6'5". I don't know how I missed the boat on that. I just didn't realize that Brian Albert Jr. was a massive, huge man. Did not know that. That is 6'5" is an absolutely massive human being. And I don't know if he was particularly athletic, but I don't get that sense at all. Do you get that sense that he was athletic? Let's see. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I'll have to try to find it, I guess, a different time. I don't know where I put it now. I have so many, like the library that I have amassed in and around this Karen Reed and Justice for John O'Keefe case is just enormous at this point. So it's hard for me to find without really thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The picture with the counter, the wine, the Converse, I agree with you. I agree with you. Probably was not Brian Albert Jr. Let me get my dog. Come here, little dog. Here's Sunny, everybody. Sunny went swimming today. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't think it was. It's sometimes the one thing I would say is like it's hard to tell when you're the only person in the image. I think that's why it took me a while to realize that he was so massive, because when we do see him, he's the only person we see. He's seated inside, the testimony box, right? And yeah, when I look back on it now, he certainly seems big, but because he's not sitting next to, Alan Jackson on the witness stand, it's hard to see just how huge of a specimen he really is. It's fascinating that he's enormous. But then when we see him in some of the later pictures in these group photos, yeah, I mean, he's like towering. He's in the back row, like where how the tall person always is in the very back row, and he's still like towering over everybody in front of him. So he is a massive human being. Very interesting. Just by itself, like Brian Albert Jr. is a science project. Like just that is like could be a whole psychological analysis. Because he just seems so out of place in that family system. So out of place, like just culturally, obviously people think that he's gay. I have no idea if that's true. It certainly seems true, but he also could just be, I don't know, cultured. I don't know. I have no idea. I do not know. You guys might know more about that than me. I do not know anything about his love life specifically. Best thing, I mean, what I know is that he's friends with Julie Nagel from childhood, that's his childhood buddy is Julie Nagel. Unbelievable. At LMP69 sends $5. It ticked me off that Gildea wanted wrap all this up in the flag, then said, I know, we're a democracy. No, sir. We're a constitutional republic. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, and then tied it to the July 4th holiday, trying to, I think he was trying to move the conversation from punitive and threatening into like this place of togetherness. And basically he was saying, it's up to you guys as the attorneys to come together to come up with some system for how you want to deal with this. And I got that. I understood what he was doing, but it's very difficult to outright threaten both sides. One saying, yeah, I'll just dismiss the case, or the other saying, I'm just going to award the plaintiffs, right? I mean, it's hard to make a threat like that and then be like, but, we're all one. And we're all going to come together for this July 4th, 250-year celebration of this country. I mean, it's just, yeah, I agree with you. It was frustrating. I mean, it was like the ultimate display of, making us all frustrated. It was hard not to lose your head today with this hearing, and just like the pomp and circumstance around it, the fact that he made such a big deal, the fact that he made them all sign these affidavits, the fact that he made Alan Jackson and whoever else fly in from wherever to be there, and I knew for sure this thing wasn't going to be more than 20 minutes because. I mean, it hasn't been. If we look back at the precedent, when was it ever over 20 minutes, right? It hasn't been so far. These are very quick in and out hearings. So why would this be any different? Insane. At eroy94 sends $10. Proctor is suspected of planting evidence to frame Karen for red rum. Do we really think he's below leaking his own documents to get out of the rest of his depot. Sus. The calls coming from in the house. I don't know if he's smart enough. I will just tell you, I do not think that Michael Proctor is smart. I mean, I think that's really like what does him in. If he was smarter, he might be a little bit more dangerous, but he's just not. He's not a smart guy. He's not a sophisticated guy. That's why we see him being so flagrant and open on these text threads. Day one, first 10 hours with his kindergarten pals. If he was smarter, you wouldn't do that. You don't text your bosses, I'm looking for nudes, whether it's true or not true. You just don't do that, right? But this guy just, and I think that's always spoke to me that they were getting away with it for a very long time. No consequence. Nobody blinked an eye. Nobody asked any questions. They felt very comfortable in Michael Morrissey's DA office, where Greg Connor was one of the, most active leaders in that office, which is why I think it's very important that we keep mentioning that, because it's easy for people to just not associate Greg Connor with Michael Proctor, but make no mistake about it. Like, Greg Connor is supporting Michael Proctor. He calls him Mike. If you didn't see the interview that he did with Note My Objection, he literally, it's just so absurd, because Connor is trying to distance himself from Michael Proctor. At the same time, he doesn't call him Michael Proctor. He calls him Mike Proctor, which is just such a flagrant example of their personal relationship, right? Like, you don't call somebody Mike that you don't know. We don't call him Mike Proctor. Do you know anybody else who's ever done that except for Greg Connor? It's just, Greg Connor is the worst. He's so dishonest, you guys. He's so dishonest. And some of what I found, and I never posted it because I didn't finish it, and I'm kind of perfectionistic. So if I don't get to the end, I tend not to post it because I want to make sure it's done correctly. And I have to stop doing that sometimes. I got to just bite the bullet and put it out there so that it gets out there. The interview that he did with Note My Objection, Greg Connor, there's a number of very strong indicators of deception around the question specific to, were you asked to take over the Karen Reed case? How much did you know? How much were you involved in this case? Did Michael Morrissey ask you to be involved? Did Michael Morrissey ask you to take the case? All of these things were pretty outright lies. I mean, he just outright says, he kind of deflects, he evades, he doesn't answer directly. No, well, I was working on all these other cases, and I got really close to these other victims, and so I didn't have the time. And there's sort of inadvertent denials because he was busy with other things, but while also never actually saying directly that he had no involvement. For example, the whole time he's seated in the courtroom. I mean, how many days during the first trial is he in the room? He's in there, sitting in the room. Oh, I was just getting coffee for Lally. Like, no. One thing I can tell you for sure, Greg Connor probably never got Adam Lally a coffee in the entire time that they had worked together. So that's not what he was doing there, I promise. And then he lies and says, well, the thing that I saw that was being, deliberated was whether or not the car hit John. And going back to the first trial, while ARCA became a thing, as the trial went on, when the defense put on their case, in actuality, the third-party culprit was a much bigger part of the first trial. I mean, 61 or 60, however many witnesses were dragged into court to try to make the case that, these witnesses were innocent, and provided evidence that Karen Reed said she did it and said she hit him and all this bullshit. So it's just, the man is a flagrant liar, and it does need to be exposed. And I just need to do it. I really need to do it. I really do. I know, Emily. I know. I know, Emily. I'm going to finish it. I promise you I'll finish it. I know I keep saying that. That and the Chris Mellon video I have to finish too, but I will do the Greg Connor one because it's fascinating. And sometimes I will say that when I step away from a case and then go back to it, like it's, the indicators are much more glaring. It's kind of like my brain has had time to sit with it and process it. And so everything kind of slows down. So I have the video. It is ready to be completely analyzed. So maybe that'll be my next thing. And along the same lines, Emily knows this. I'm absolutely in love with Adam Deitch. He's just, from Emily's interview with him, it was just, he's like dreamy. It's like, I'm listening to him and like I get stars in my eyes because I'm like, oh my God, like he just so clearly gets it and he clearly cares and he clearly wants justice for John and Sandra, and he's such a good man. And I believe that without him, we might not have had ARCA. I believe, based on the interview that Emily, you did with him, that he was pivotal in those 3,100 pages being delivered to Karen. That he may have actually been the guy that, if you had to pick one person who single-handedly is responsible for exonerating Karen, it may not be Alan Jackson or David Yannetti or Bob Alessi or, any of his legal team. It may actually have been Adam Deitch. And we'll never know because he can't tell us. But there were a lot of indicators in your interview that were really striking. So maybe what I will do is I will do an analysis of both of them because it is pretty shocking to see side by side. It really, really is. And that'll take out some of the sting of the horrifying accent on the part of the interview in the Greg Connor interview. Just we'll leave it at that. And by the way, not all Boston accents are like that for me. Like there are people that have endearing and sort of really fun and interesting Boston accents. This one in particular just isn't one of them. So I will do it. I promise. I will do. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. How's this? By the time we get back from July 4th vacation. That's my promise to you, Emily. I will do it. We need to do it. And it's getting close, man. It's getting close. So, Emily, the election day, just so everybody knows, or the Democratic, I should say, the Democratic election is the weekend before Labor Day. So it's in the middle of the summer, which I can't help but, speculate was on purpose to try to curb turnout. maybe not, but seems pretty horrible of a time, like right at the end of the summer when everybody's on their like final stretch of vacation. That's when you put the final vote for who the Democratic candidate is going to be. And because this is an entirely Democratic race, that is likely going to be the winner. So keep it in mind. You can, of course, vote mail-in ballot. So consider it. Definitely take a closer look at that. Be ready the weekend before Labor Day. At 20th Century, Foxy sends $4.99. Gildea's speech felt a lot like Morrissey's hostage speech, language analysis. It seems like it could be the same writer. It almost did seem like that, right? It did seem like that. Morrissey is more of an idiot, and so I think Gildea's was a little bit more cloaked. Like, it had a little bit more of sophistication. It was a little bit, maybe not sophistication. It was cloaked. Like, there were more unnecessary words that made it harder to understand. I still have to go back, and there's a few sentences that just were unnecessarily complex on purpose, which tells us that he was trying to say something he doesn't really want us to know. He doesn't really want us to understand. Whereas, like, Morrissey was pretty clear, and Morrissey is just not that smart. I mean, I know he was smart enough to be DA for decades, but I don't think that race was sought after. I don't think anybody wanted that post. He just seemed to, like, it was uncontested. He just kept running and winning because nobody cared. It's very sad. It's so sad that, like, and I guess that's human nature, right? Like, it's hard. There's only so much time in the day. We only have so much attention to go around. We only have so much energy to go around. And it takes a lot for us to give energy to something like this that's removed from our daily lives, that doesn't involve our kids, our family, our partners, our jobs, right? So it takes a lot for people to really get motivated to make it a priority. Luckily enough that so many of us have. So, and by the way, I am grateful beyond words to be a part of this community, honored, humbled by you guys every second of every day that I get to be here with you. It's such a beautiful gift. And I really, truly do feel like we are just a beautiful community. I really believe that from the bottom of my soul. And I know how hard that is, right? Like, given the political climate, given how polarized our culture has become and our society has become, it's truly a special thing to see all of us coming together, oftentimes putting our political beliefs, our social beliefs aside completely to be able to row our boat in one direction, to see this one case through to the end, to see what is right be done, to see justice be done for John O'Keefe, despite the fact that his family is fighting us every step of the way. Uneffing believable. Unbelievable. At Love from Tejas. Hi, Love from Tejas is a member for 5 months. Hi, Sam. How unprofessional was the jab at AJ? I don't know. What do you think of an insult cloaked in a joke? Love you. Love you. Yes, I know. I mean, it was unprofessional, but I think we've seen similar types of jokes from this judge before. The others seemed a little bit more harmless. This one seemed a little bit more out of left field and a little bit less tasteful, but we have seen them before. Like, he has made jokes with some of other Rosenberg, some of Karen's other attorneys. So I'm not terribly surprised. I just didn't see I didn't see its placement. Like, it didn't make sense exactly what he was saying there. So it was a little weird, but I think it was a jab at his high profile nature. I'm sure Alan Jackson didn't like it at all. That was the sense I got very briefly. Alan just kind of gave him this look like, and rightfully so. Look at what Alan Jackson has been through with Judge Bev. I mean, you heard that first interview. What a great interview, by the way. One of the great interviews that you'll ever get with an attorney right after that case, where he just didn't hold back, told the truth, made it very clear with Howie Carr about how he felt about Judge Bev. And while Yannetti, conversely, and to be fair, Yannetti has to probably see her again, was like the opposite. He wasn't going to say anything negative about her at all. He was like very PC, but not Alan Jackson, boy. He came out guns blazing, like this woman was a nightmare. Rightfully so. And I was grateful for that because, boy, I'll never, ever forget when the defense took over trial 2 And that very first witness, she just sustained every objection that Hank Brennan put forth and then overruled every objection that Alan Jackson put forth when Hank was cross-examining. It was so just corrupt and cruel, and it was setting a precedent, letting Alan Jackson know, oh, you think this is going to be easy? You think I'm just going to let you get what you want? Oh, nope. It was shocking. Just shocking. Disgusting. So, Emily says, the trial channel posted a video where you can see that the joke kind of made sense. His team had a huge Worksman Jackson logo behind. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. No, we saw I did use the trial channel. I see what happened. So it was it was the conference room where Little and Woke were that he was referencing there. That's what you're talking about. Thank you for clarifying that. That makes me feel much better. I don't know that AJ got it in that moment because he looked a little bit confused, but maybe he did and we just didn't. That makes a lot more sense. So thank you for clarifying that. That's important. Thanks, Emily, for saving the day there, because I was like, what is he talking about? It seemed like it was a reference to something that had happened minutes before, or just seconds before, actually, in relationship to like the guy that I don't know what it's called, like the guy who was listing off the names. It seemed like it was a reference to something that guy had said, but now the fact that there was that, like the big logo with Jackson on the the sign, right? It was three names, somebody Jackson and somebody. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Totally got it. Thanks for clarifying that. Makes a huge amount of sense. Thank you, Emily. Wow. Okay, guys. So we are approaching 4 hours. Everybody hit that like button if you haven't already. What a night. What a day. Is it ever going to end? Probably not. We're probably going to be here for the rest of our lives dealing with this bullshit, and hopefully not. Hopefully not. But I wanted to, first off, let me make sure I got everybody. I don't want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I hate when I miss people. It's the absolute worst. I want to say just a huge thank you to @TechSavvyIDBH for doing a tremendous job moderating tonight. Thank you so much. Huge props to you. You jumped into the last minute. Super good, super helpful, just amazing. You're welcome back anytime to do it again. And I'm sure Denise so appreciates your help. And Denise, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that Bugsy is doing well. Let me read this one more. I want to make sure that I get to everybody here. @Hayden's MA sends $4.99. Network of judges, prosecutors, and cops. Too much to lose. And this is the setup. So much to lose. And look, listen, if you are in that cohort and you hear that text messages are starting to like leak into, the public sphere more and more, whether or not you've ever done anything truly corrupt, it's got to be a little scary, right? Like Adam Lally, little scary. And we did see that in his testimony. I will also tell you recently, I think I probably did it at the time, but it just for myself, I went back and I did another analysis of Adam Lally when Rosemary Scapiccio did that voir dire kind of interview thing about how he dealt with discovery. Fascinating. A lot is in there. I mean, Adam Lally is hedging. He is minimizing, he is distancing. Like, it is a pretty significant display of just BS up and down and back again. So that's another one. If I had all the time in the world, you guys, you would have seen all these by now. The problem is it is endless. There's so much deception to try to analyze, and you have to pick and choose your battles. And so normally I pick what most people are the most interested in. And sometimes I will also admit I need a break from John O'Keefe, Karen Reed stuff. So like, I like the Corey Richins cases, the Mackenzie Sharilla cases. I like stuff that just is fun and like not as upsetting, because this case obviously is very charged. It's my heart, and I can get very upset and unglued very quickly. So it gets too personal sometimes, and I have to kind of back off. But you are right. I mean, 100%. And I will say one more thing. This is, to me, it's the tip of the iceberg. Oh, sorry. At Hayden's Ma. Thank you. Thank you, Hayden's Ma, for correcting me. I appreciate you. Don't ever hesitate, you guys, to correct me. I don't mind being corrected, because I'm moving so fast. Sometimes I don't read it correctly. I do not mind being corrected. Please don't ever hesitate to do so. Everybody enjoy. Oh my God. Happy 4th of July. I love the July 4th holiday. We have this like huge fireworks display. It's like a family reunion, midsummer family reunion. So it's going to be hopefully we don't have huge thunderstorms and we have decent weather. But it should be a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoy it. You stay cool. It's supposed to be hot as could be pretty much everywhere in the US. So try to stay cool. And everybody enjoy your holiday. We will be back next Wednesday, and only God knows what the hell is coming between now and then. You just never know in this case. You never frickin' know.
It is the defense counselor's
Love you guys
duty
so
to
much,
protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state.
Bye, guys.
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.
This is me reminding you once again to like the video, like this video, like the video, like this video right now.